Chapter 939. 939 Chapter 939 Life Potion. Poisonous Insects. It was obvious that this island not only had poisonous gas, but also poisonous insects. Whoosh! The fist-sized poisonous scorpion had obviously discovered them. It moved its body and turned into a black light, shooting toward King Kong. "You're looking for death." King Kong shouted. A big knife appeared in his hand and he slashed at the scorpion accurately. Clang! The sound of metal hitting metal rang out, and Scorpion was sent flying far away. He crashed into the ground, creating a large pit. But the next moment, the scorpion shook its body and crawled out of the ground. Nest, what a tough body. It didn't get cut in half by my saber. King Kong was slightly surprised. Although he had just casually slashed it, he was holding a 7th-level spiritual weapon. The poisonous scorpion didn't die from that slash. No wonder he was able to kill a young Heaven's Pride expert. Whoosh! The black poisonous scorpion pounced at King Kong again. "Damn it, do you think I'm easy to bully?" King Kong grinned, put away his big blade and swung his claw. Whoosh! The sharp claw radiance tore through the air and scratched the poisonous scorpion, making an unpleasant sizzling sound. The poisonous scorpion could not withstand King Kong's sharp claws and was torn into pieces. After that, the group became much more careful and headed deeper into the island. Their speed was also much slower. This is the Poison Heart Wood. After 100 miles, when Jianghu suddenly stopped, he found a fragrant tree as thick as an arm. "I didn't expect there to be such a treasure here." Gong Fei's eyes also lit up. This was a top-notch level 7 spirit wood. If it was used to refine pills, it would have a powerful detoxification effect. In a highly toxic place there was an antidote. "I'm afraid there are many treasures in this place," Gong Fei said. "Let's collect them first. When we get out of the Sky Poison Island, we'll divide them equally." Naturally, no one had any objections to Wen Jishi's suggestion. After that, Wen Zhongli dug out the poisonous heartwood and put it away. As they continued to move forward, they discovered spiritual herbs from time to time. They were all at least level 6 and some were even level 7. The most shocking thing was that they even found 2 level 8 spiritual herbs. Not only spiritual herbs but also some precious ores. He also found a few. "There's a corpse." As they moved forward, they found a corpse, but it was already in tatters. It was obvious that it had been bitten by poisonous insects. This place was full of opportunities, but it was also full of danger. More than 100 people had come in, and it was unknown how many people would die here. Rustle. Suddenly, a rustling sound came from the forest. "Guys, look. There's something in the ground," Gong Fei suddenly exclaimed. On the ground in front of them, a large piece of land was protruding, and that protrusion was moving towards them at an extremely fast speed. When Zhongli stepped on the ground and a formation appeared. A battle sword formed and slashed towards the bump. Bang! The protruding part was cut, but the next moment, everyone's expression changed. Countless black poisonous scorpions rushed out from the ground and charged toward the 4 of them. They were densely packed and it was unknown how many there were. This poisonous scorpion was exactly the same as the one he had seen before. Without any hesitation, Lu Ming, Wen Qixi and Gong Fei began to inscribe inscriptions at the same time. A formation appeared on the ground and a light screen appeared in front of the 4. Bang! 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 Countless scorpions crashed into the light screen, causing it to shake violently. Following that, the light screens shattered one after another. Lu Ming and the rest's expressions changed drastically. These light screens were all condensed by a level 7 primary formation technique, yet they were easily broken. "Let's go, there are too many scorpions, we can't kill them all." "Run!" Lu Ming shouted. The 4 of them turned around and ran at top speed. Scorpion was in hot pursuit. However, with every step that Lu Ming, Wen Zhongli and Gong Fei took, a large array would appear on the ground, forming a light screen to block the poisonous scorpions. Therefore, the speed of the poisonous scorpions was greatly reduced. Before long, the 4 of them had shaken off the many poisonous scorpions. Whoosh! At this moment, a scarlet object pierced through the air, emitting a disgusting smell. It was aimed at Lu Ming's glabella. Lu Ming's expression changed. With 4 concepts surrounding him, he struck out with his palm. Bang! Suddenly he felt a huge force surge towards him. He couldn't help but take 2 steps back, and the scarlet thing was also sent flying. A fish? Lu Ming could not help but be shocked when he saw the thing that sneaked an attack on him. It was a big colorful fish that was more than 10 meters long. Its body was covered in scales, but it actually had a pair of wings. It flew in the air and a scarlet tongue stretched out from its big mouth. It was this big fish that had sneaked an attack on Lu Ming just now. What kind of monster is this? Wen Zhishe also said in a deep voice. Gaga. The big fish let out a strange cry. It flapped its wings and pounced at Lu Ming. Lu Ming took a step forward and dashed out. He activated the prison-suppressing heaven technique and slashed at the strange fish with his palm. The strange fish's scarlet tongue curled like a soft whip and rolled toward Lu Ming. Bang! His palm struck the strange fish's tongue and the tongue exploded. Lu Ming did not stop and continued to charge at the strange fish. The strange fish let out a strange cry and spat out a dense green poisonous gas from its mouth. Lu Ming unleashed his devouring power and covered his body, instantly devouring the poisonous gas. He dashed forward and struck the head of the strange fish with his palm. The strange fish exploded with a bang. The strength of this strange fish was not weaker than the third level of the spirit embryo realm. With the addition of the poisonous gas, it was even more terrifying. However, when it encountered Lu Ming, it was naturally killed easily. However, this also showed how dangerous it was. After all, how many people could have combat strength like Lu Ming's? Many geniuses would die when they encountered this strange fish. There seems to be something over there. King Kong's nose twitched a few times as if he had smelled something. He looked to the right. That was the direction where the strange fish had appeared. Let's go and take a look. The four of them went to the right, and not long after, a few more strange fish appeared and charged at them. These strange fish seemed to be guarding something? There should be a treasure. The four of them seemed to have thought of something and attacked with all their might. A few strange fish were easily killed and they continued to move forward. Along the way they killed more than a dozen strange fish. They saw a cliff wall, and on the cliff wall there was a small puddle. That's the elixir of life. When Zhongli cried out in shock. Lu Ming, Jin Gang and Gong Fei's eyes widened abruptly. There was a milky white liquid in the small puddle, and it gave off a shocking amount of life essence. Elixir of life, it's the elixir of life. Lu Ming said excitedly. He had once bid for a small bottle of elixir of life at an auction in the Great Domain. However, it had been diluted and the concentration was very low, so it couldn't be considered the real elixir of life. However, Lu Ming would never forget that aura. The small puddle in front of him was the real water of life. The elixir of life was an unparalleled treasure. It was extremely rare in the world. It could resurrect the dead and grow flesh on bones. Its effect was heaven-defying. As long as one was still breathing, it could be saved. No matter how heavy the injuries suffered, it could be healed. Chapter 940. 940 Chapter 940 Road Robbery. Such a rare treasure was counted in drops. For example, the bottle of elixir of life that Lu Ming had bid for in the past was most likely diluted with a drop of the elixir of life. In front of him, there was a small puddle that weighed at least a few kilograms. An opportunity. A great opportunity. Jin Gang grinned. Lu Ming and the few of them also smiled. Let's split it equally? Wen Lezhang said. All right. Lu Ming and the rest agreed. Wen Zhishe took out the jade bottle and prepared to collect the elixir of life. Haha, what a great opportunity. There's actually an elixir of life here. At this moment, an excited laugh was heard. With a flash of golden light, a young man appeared on the scene. The golden pool. The few of them were shocked. The newcomer was none other than Jin Qi, the supreme talent of the demon clan from the heavenly demon valley. Jin Qi's gaze swept across the elixir of life and he berated, I'm in a good mood today, so I won't kill you. You can get lost now. Golden Pool, we were the ones who discovered this elixir of life first. If you want to keep it for yourself, aren't you being too greedy? Wen Zhishe said with an ugly expression. Big appetite? My appetite is just that big. What? Do you still want to fight me? A golden light emanated from Jin Qi's body. His eyes were filled with killing intent and he looked at Lu Ming and the others with disdain. King Kong, you're a heaven's favorite of the demon race. It's embarrassing for you to hang out with the human race. You don't have to go back to the Sky Demon Valley. Otherwise, I don't mind killing you. A cold voice came out of Jin Qi's mouth. King Kong's expression was ugly, but he didn't dare to refute. Fear flashed in his eyes. It was obvious that Vajra was extremely afraid of the golden pool. The spiritual fire between Wen Zhishe's and Gong Fei's brows leaped. Vital essence burst forth from Lu Ming's body as he confronted the golden pool. Overestimating your own ability, you're really looking for death. Jinqi's eyes turned cold. The golden light on his body became even more intense, and a terrifying aura burst out. That aura was incomparably vast, and the pressure was like a mountain pressing down on everyone. Lu Ming and the others felt an extremely dangerous feeling in their hearts. He felt that as long as he fought with Jinqi, his life would be in danger. Lu Ming, let's go. At this time King Kong growled. Leave? When Zhisher and Gong Fei's faces were filled with unwillingness. Let's go. Jinqi is extremely powerful. I've dealt with him before. Even if the four of us join forces, we're definitely not his match. The difference is too great. We'll only be killed. Vajra growled and transmitted his voice to Lu Ming and the other two. Let's go. At this moment Lu Ming spoke. King Kong was right. The golden pool gave him an extremely dangerous feeling. Lu Ming felt that if they were to fight, even if he had the mountain and river diagram, he would not be able to defend against the other party's attacks. They might even be killed here. Although the elixir of life was precious, there was no need to fight for it with his life. When Zhisher and Gong Fei also gritted their teeth, the four of them moved and quickly retreated, leaving the place far behind. Jinqi smiled faintly. It was not because he was kind and did not want to kill them, but because he felt that Lu Ming and the other three were not simple. If they were to fight, even if he could kill them, he would have to spend some effort. This island was filled with poisonous insects and poisonous fog. It would save him a lot of effort and would be beneficial for his search for the totem pole. That was why he didn't make a move. Otherwise he would have killed Lu Ming and the rest. What a pity. After he left, Wen Zhongyi sighed. Lu Ming did not say anything, but his gaze was more determined. In this world, strength spoke for itself. Without strength, it was useless to say anything. The four of them continued to explore, but their direction did not change. They kept going deeper into the island. This was because the totem pole was most likely deep within the island. However, the deeper they went into the island, the thicker the poisonous fog became, and the more powerful it was. Inscriptions appeared on Wen Zhisher and Gong Fei's bodies. A light shield enveloped them and blocked the poisonous gas around them. The Vajra's demonic power spread out and covered his entire body. The surrounding poisonous gas came into contact with the inscription light shield and demonic power, making a constant sizzling sound and corroding the light shield and demonic power. Lu Ming was the most relaxed. His entire body was covered in a layer of devouring power. All the poisonous gas was devoured, and it did not affect Lu Ming's movements at all. This made Wen Qini and the rest click their tongues in wonder. In their hearts, Lu Ming was becoming more and more unfathomable. Not long after, they saw a young man with a green face running back in panic. It was obvious that he was deeply poisoned. The few of them had grave expressions on their faces as they advanced another few thousand miles. At this point, the power of the poisonous gas was even more terrifying. The light shield formed by Wen Zhisher and Gong Fei's formation was shaking and shaking violently on the island. The King Kong's demonic power was the same. It was constantly resisting the poisonous gas and was consuming a lot of its energy. Lu Ming, it seems that I can only go this far. I can't go any deeper. Wen Zhongli shook his head and smiled bitterly. I'm the same. Gong Fei said. King Kong also looked at Lu Ming with eager eyes. If this continued, they would be in danger. Then you guys stay in the periphery and look for opportunities. I'll continue to explore deeper. Lu Ming nodded. He bade farewell to Wen Qini and the rest and left alone. Not long after, Lu Ming had traveled another few thousand miles. At this point, the power of the poisonous gas had reached a shocking level. There was no trace of the poisonous insects, let alone people. Tap tap. Lu Ming was cautious as he walked forward step by step. He did not know what kind of danger he would encounter here. He was on full alert and did not dare to move too fast. There's someone in front. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He saw a figure in front of him. The figure was also moving slowly. Clearly it was much slower than Lu Ming. Luo Tian. As he walked closer, he realized that the young man in front of him was Luo Tian. Luo Tian's entire body was filled with demonic qi. It formed a thick demonic qi armor that covered his entire body and blocked the poisonous gas around him. However, the poisonous gas was terrifyingly powerful. It constantly corroded the demonic qi armor. It was obvious that Luo Tian was having a hard time moving forward. Hearing the commotion, Luo Tian turned around and was shocked. Obviously, he did not expect that other than himself and Jin Qi, there would be someone else who could make it this far. However, when he saw the devouring power that was constantly permeating Lu Ming's body, his eyes flashed. Lu Ming ignored Luo Tian and strode forward. However, Luo Tian clearly had no intention of letting him go. Bang! Luo Tian took a step forward and appeared in front of Lu Ming, blocking his way. Your Excellency, what is the meaning of this? Lu Ming's face darkened. You should have a treasure that can resist the poisonous gas, right? Give it to me. Luo Tian said in a commanding tone. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. It turned out that Luo Tian had regarded the devouring power of the nine-dragon bloodline as some kind of treasure. Your Excellency, I don't have any treasure that can resist the poisonous gas. Lu Ming said. No? You still want to lie to me? Do you think I'm an idiot? If you didn't have a treasure to resist the poisonous gas, how could you have come here? Hurry up and hand it over or I'll take it myself. It'll be the same. Luo Tian sneered, his eyes flashing with killing intent. Chapter 941. 941 Chapter 941 Meeting Luo Tian. Your Excellency, this is too much. Lu Ming said. Even if he had a treasure that could resist the poison, he would still be poisoned to death if he gave it to Luo Tian. Luo Tian did not consider his life at all. Haha, too much? It's your honor to be able to help me, you piece of trash. If you don't hand it over, I'll kill you immediately. Luo Tian's eyes were filled with demonic energy and his killing intent became even colder. Hehe, Luo Tian, who do you think you are? Lu Ming suddenly sneered. He then took a step forward and dashed to the side at top speed. You're looking for death. Luo Tian was stunned for a moment. Then he let out an angry roar and slashed his palm at Lu Ming like a knife. The terrifying saber flare almost split the poisonous gas apart. The surrounding poisonous gas rolled as the saber flare approached Lu Ming. Roar! A dragon's roar rang out. Lu Ming exploded with all his dragon energy. At the same time, the mountain and river diagram rushed out and surrounded him. Boom! Lu Ming threw a punch and it collided with the saber radiance. A terrifying explosion rang out and the poisonous gas nearby was dispersed. Lu Ming felt waves of incomparably terrifying saber radiance surging towards him. However, most of it was blocked by the mountain and river diagram. However, there was still a portion that surged into the mountain and river diagram. There were a few more wounds on Lu Ming's body and blood was flowing out. Lu Ming made use of this force to retreat backward 1,000 meters. He then ran to the side. What an overbearing saber technique. What a powerful combat strength. A stream of blood seeped out from the corner of Lu Ming's mouth. The scales on his fist burst open, revealing a deep cut so deep that the bone could be seen. Luo Tian's strength was far above his. No wonder he was ranked 10th on the list of top 1,000 talents. So you do have some strength. Luo Tian frowned and his killing intent grew colder. Although he did not use his full strength in that move just now, there were not many people who could block his blade. Bang! He took a step forward, and his body was like a flash of light as he chased after Lu Ming at an extremely fast speed. Brat, you have so many treasures on you. You'd better hand them all over, or I'll make you die an ugly death. Luo Tian's voice was cold. Lu Ming could not be bothered with him. He broke into a run. Kill? Die. Luo Tian shouted as a black demonic blade appeared in his hand. He slashed with all his might. 1,000-meter-long astral blade formed and broke through the poisonous gas. It cut through the void and slashed toward Lu Ming. This slash was several times more powerful than the previous one. Lu Ming did not fight it head-on. His figure flashed to the side rapidly. However, the saber light actually moved along with him and slashed down at high speed. In the end, Lu Ming managed to dodge it. However, he was still hit by the sharp edge of the saber energy. The mountain and river diagram shook violently. Lu Ming's body shook violently and he spat out a mouthful of blood. With his injuries, it was difficult for him to maintain his disguise and return to his original appearance. Lu Ming. After seeing Lu Ming's true appearance, Luo Tian let out an angry roar and his eyes flashed with killing intent. Lu Ming, it's you? How dare you kill my brother Luo Li? Die. Die. I'll make sure you die without a burial place. Demonic chi surged from Luo Tian's body and his speed increased to a terrifying level. He was like a demonic blade that cut through the air. He was actually a little faster than Lu Ming. He's so strong. This Luo Tian's cultivation is only at the 7th level of the spirit embryo realm, but his combat strength is too terrifying. Even geniuses like Wang Chen and Nangong Bo, who are at the same level as Luo Tian, would be easily killed by him. Lu Ming's mind was racing. Luo Tian's strength was extremely terrifying. He could not be measured by ordinary warriors or even ordinary geniuses. Other than a few people, Luo Tian was basically invincible in a battle of the same level. Furthermore, his cultivation was 3 levels higher than Lu Ming's. Lu Ming changed his direction and rushed toward the depths of the Sky Poison Island. The poisonous gas was thicker there, which was to his advantage. Damn it! Luo Tian shouted angrily and chased after him. In the blink of an eye they had gone another 100 miles. And NBSP buzz. Suddenly a buzzing sound came from ahead. It was a group of poisonous bees. There were basically no living creatures here, but there were still so many poisonous bees. These poisonous bees were absolutely terrifying. Luo Tian, I'll let you have a taste of the poisonous bee. Lu Ming's figure did not stop. He charged directly at the poisonous bees and threw a punch at the same time. A flaming fist radiance rushed into the poisonous bees. This time, it was as if he had poked the hornet's nest. The poisonous bees were in a frenzy. They seemed to be very angry and rushed toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming used the mountain and river diagram to block the attacks. Bang bang bang. The poisonous bees kept hitting the mountain and river diagram, causing it to shake violently. Then Lu Ming turned around and ran toward Luo Tian. Damn you, you're crazy. Luo Tian bellowed and slashed out a shocking saber flare. Lu Ming tried his best to dodge it. Although he did not manage to avoid it completely and was shocked to the point of spitting blood, the saber flare cut down a bunch of poisonous bees. The rest flew angrily towards Luo Tian. There was a long tube at the head of each bee. Poisonous gas of various colors spewed out from the tube and spread toward Luo Tian. Pili Pala. The demonic armor on Luo Tian's body made a sound of corrosion. He was so frightened that his face turned pale and he ran away. Lu Ming, don't let me see you again. I'll kill you. Luo Tian's voice could be heard, but he had already disappeared. Lu Ming ran forward in large strides. A group of poisonous bees kept chasing him. Fortunately, he could devour poisonous gas, so the poisonous gas of the poisonous bees was ineffective against him. The mountain and river diagram could also defend against the poisonous bees' attacks. Not long after, Lu Ming shook off the poisonous bees and continued on his way. After 1,000 miles, a huge mountain appeared in front of Lu Ming. Boom, boom. Suddenly, a violent rumble came from the foot of the mountain. There seemed to be a great battle going on. Who is it? Could it be that the human race's heaven's favorite has eliminated me? There's still someone who can make it this far? Lu Ming's expression changed. According to his speculation, Luo Tian should not have been able to reach this place. He immediately concealed his aura and approached carefully. When they walked closer, they found a cave at the bottom of the mountain. The rumbling sound came from the cave. Lu Ming found a secret place to hide and looked in front. Not long after, the rumbling sounds in the cave disappeared. A golden light flashed and a figure rushed out of the cave. The golden pool. Lu Ming's gaze flickered. That figure was actually Jinchi. On top of the golden pool, there was a golden bead that scattered down rays of sword light, helping the golden pool to block the poisonous gas outside. However, it was obvious that it could not completely block it. The green gas on Jinchi's face was clearly poisonous. Damned beast. Jinchi growled and glared at the cave. Then he found a place, took out a pile of raw stones and began to absorb them. He did not notice Lu Ming. It was obvious that he had fought with something in the cave and his Zhenyuan had been severely depleted. Now he was out to absorb the raw stones to recover his Zhenyuan. Half an hour later, Jinchi got up and rushed into the cave again. The sound of a battle could be heard from the cave again. Not long after, Jinchi roared and rushed out of the cave. This time he was in a worse state. His hair was disheveled, and the golden feather clothes on his body were shattered. The golden bead on his head was also shattered, and the golden light that scattered was greatly reduced. The green gas on Jinchi's face was even thicker. It was obvious that he was more deeply poisoned, and his aura was much weaker than before. He looked at the cave unwillingly, but he did not dare to stay and rushed out. A cold glint flashed in Lu Ming's eyes. He took a step forward and dashed toward the golden pool at top speed. Chapter 942. 942 Chapter 942 Killing Jin Qi. Lu Ming would not let go of such an opportunity to take his life when he was weak. As he rushed out, Lu Ming directly exploded with his dragon power. In a few breaths he was close to the golden pool. Who is it? Jin Qi was shocked and suddenly looked in Lu Ming's direction. Boom. Lu Ming's palm struck towards the top of Jin Qi's head. This palm could split a mountain. Lu Ming had used all his strength. Jin Qi had never expected that there would be someone else here. In a hurry he raised his arm to block. Boom. Jin Qi's body was sent flying far away, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. It seems that he's really seriously injured. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Previously, Luo Tian had been so afraid of Jin Qi, which showed that Jin Qi's strength must be extremely terrifying. He was definitely not weaker than Luo Tian or even stronger. Now that he had been sent flying by Lu Ming's palm, it was clear that Jin Qi had been seriously injured in the cave and was shrouded in poisonous gas. His strength had been greatly reduced. Brat, you dare to sneak attack me? You're looking for death. As soon as Jin Qi retreated, he was furious. His eyes were filled with a shocking murderous intent as he looked at Lu Ming. After taking a look, Jin Qi's eyes widened and he exclaimed, Lu Ming, you're Lu Ming? Lu Ming was not in disguise and the golden pool could recognize him at a glance. Kill? Lu Ming could not be bothered to waste his breath on him. He strode forward and charged toward the golden pool. Don't think that you can kill me just because I'm injured. You're the one who's going to die today. I'll kill you and get the reward from the Flood Dragon Sovereign. Jin Qi's voice was cold. A strong golden light burst out from his body and he charged towards Lu Ming. Boom. The two of them exchanged a blow. Lu Ming's body swayed and he stood still, but Jin Qi was forced to retreat. Right now you're not my match at all. Lu Ming did not care about defense at all. He attacked the golden pool frantically. Every punch and palm strike contained the power of millions of Jun. They suppressed everything and poured madly into the golden pool. Moreover, many of the attacks were aimed at the round pearl above the golden pool. Boom. Boom. The golden pool exploded and collided with Lu Ming continuously. Bang. After a few dozen moves, the round bead on top of Jin Qi's head was shattered by Lu Ming's punch. The bead shattered and more poisonous gas gushed towards Jin Qi. Jin Qi's face turned even greener. Damn it. The golden pool let out a shrill cry and transformed into its true form. It was a golden yuan. Of course, it was not a pure-blooded golden yuan. It had more than 60% of the golden yuan's bloodline. A dragon's roar was heard. Lu Ming used the fusion of his blood meridians and transformed into 9 dragons to continue his attack. Jin Qi coughed out blood continuously. His golden body was covered in a thick layer of poisonous green gas, and the concentration was getting stronger and stronger. The golden pool tried its best to rush out but was held back by Lu Ming. The longer this dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for Jin Qi. His eyes were already filled with panic. In the blink of an eye, dozens of moves had been exchanged. Puchi. The claws of the 9 dragons clawed at Jin Qi's body and tore off a large piece of flesh. Golden feathers flew in the air and Jin Qi let out a blood-curdling scream. Bang. He used the 9 dragons' heaven-treading steps and took 6 steps in a row. The violent attacks poured onto Jin Qi's body, causing him to fall to the ground and create a huge pit. Bang. The 9 dragons descended and grabbed Jin Qi's wings with their claws. They tore at Jin Qi's wings with all their might, and as blood splattered, the wings were torn off. Jin Qi let out a heart-wrenching scream. He no longer had that high and mighty attitude from before. What he had was only fear and embarrassment. He was terrified. He could feel death approaching. Boom. The dragon claw struck again, and a violent force blasted into Jin Qi's body, dispersing all of his demonic power. No, don't kill me, spare my life. Jin Qi shouted. He didn't want to die. One of the 9 dragons' claws was on Jin Qi's neck. He looked at Jin Qi with cold eyes and said, "Weren't you high and mighty before?" He's so domineering, snatching other people's things without even blinking. Your biggest mistake was that you couldn't bear to waste it. When you came out of the cave, you swallowed a few drops of the life potion, and your injuries would have healed immediately. I'm not your match either. It's a pity that you couldn't bear to waste the life potion, hee. Lu Ming sneered continuously. You're one of the 4? Jin Qi's eyes widened. Not bad. Lu Ming said. Lu Ming, spare me. I'll give you whatever you want. I still have a lot of treasures in my storage ring, including the elixir of life. I can return them all to you as long as you let me go. Jinchi loudly begged for mercy. Spare you? Are you going to kill me after you've recovered? Am I that stupid? Besides, after I kill you, your treasures will be mine, right? Lu Ming sneered. No, don't kill me. I swear, I will never seek revenge from you, Jinchi shouted. However, before he could finish his sentence, Lu Ming suddenly exerted his strength and swung his dragon claw, killing the golden pool. A heaven's favorite of the demon race who was comparable to the top 10 on the list of top 1,000 talents, had died just like that. He had died with great regret. The devouring power burst forth and devoured the blood essence energy of the golden pool, taking away his storage ring. He glanced at the storage ring and indeed saw 2 jade bottles. The jade bottles contained the water of life. Lu Ming was overjoyed. He put away the storage ring and looked at the cave. There was a creature in the cave, and it had fought with the golden pool for so long. What happened? Lu Ming speculated that the creature in the cave would not be much stronger than the golden pool. Otherwise, the golden pool would not have dared to attack it repeatedly. It couldn't be much stronger than the golden pool. If the golden pool was injured, the creature couldn't be intact. This might be a chance. The totem pole, could it be in this cave? Otherwise, why would Jinchi work so hard? At the thought of the totem pole, Lu Ming's heart burned with passion. Lu Ming carefully moved closer to the cave. The hole was huge and there was a faint light coming from inside. Lu Ming walked in slowly and looked inside. There was a huge cave inside. Behind the cave was another cave. The light was coming from that cave. At the entrance of the cave, there was a huge colorful crab. The giant crab was taller than a human just by lying there. However, there were many wounds on its body and blood was still flowing out of them. It seemed that this giant crab was the one who had fought the golden pool. However, this giant crab wasn't any better off than Jinchi. Its aura was weak and it was obviously heavily injured. Lu Ming's fingers started to wave in the air and he started to inscribe the array. His speed was extremely fast, and his fingers were like lightning as they streaked across the air. Countless inscriptions entered the space. Squeak. The giant crab sensed the fluctuation and looked up. When it saw Lu Ming, it let out a sharp sound and got up, crawling toward him. Kill? Go. Lu Ming shouted softly. The array in the air glowed and condensed into arrows, shooting them at the giant crab. The giant crab waved its tail and blocked all the arrows. At the same time, the giant crab spewed out a large amount of poisonous gas that spread toward Lu Ming. Chapter 943. 943 The Ancient Three-Eyed God Race. Unfortunately, Lu Ming was least afraid of poisonous gas. He rushed over and started a battle with the giant crab. The giant crab was very powerful. It was definitely not weaker than the golden pool. In fact, it was even stronger. However, most of the giant crab's power was concentrated on the poisonous gas. To others, it was a fatal threat. To Lu Ming, however, he could ignore it. Moreover, the giant crab was severely injured and its strength had been greatly reduced. In this way, Lu Ming had the upper hand. However, even if Lu Ming had the upper hand, it was still very difficult for him to kill the giant crab. The cave was filled with continuous rumbles. Lu Ming used all his strength to fight the giant crab. After a few hundred moves, he finally killed it. However, Lu Ming himself was also severely injured. Lu Ming immediately took out a jade bottle. The jade bottle contained the elixir of life. He poured out 2 drops and swallowed them. At the same time, he took out a pile of raw gemstones and let the bloodline of the 9 dragons devour them. Lu Ming's injuries were recovering at an alarming rate. In a few minutes, his injuries were completely healed. The elixir of life is truly astonishing. Lu Ming secretly felt it. Soon, Lu Ming's essential core had fully recovered. He looked at the glowing hole. The totem pole, is it inside? Lu Ming walked over carefully and stepped into the cave. It was a passageway. The light came from the front and the passageway was more than 100 meters long. After passing through the passageway, Lu Ming came to another huge cave. This is... Lu Ming was extremely surprised when he arrived at the cave. This was because there was no trace of poisonous gas in this cave. Instead, it was filled with extremely rich heaven and earth spiritual qi. In fact, there was even some heaven and earth origin qi in the heaven and earth spiritual qi. This qi was exactly the same as the one in the raw gemstone. It was called origin qi. This cave and the sky poison island were simply 2 different worlds. Who's that? Suddenly, he saw a burly figure sitting cross-legged in the corner of the cave. This figure was clearly a three-eyed god, but this three-eyed god looked extremely old. His scales had all fallen off, and his two horns were dull and lifeless. However, there was still a faint aura of life on his body. And beside this three-eyed god, there were many skeletons. These were all thick bone banners, and it was obvious that they were left behind by the three-eyed god race. At this moment, the three-eyed god suddenly opened his eyes and looked at Lu Ming. The 20-year period is up again. You humans are here again. And NBSP, let's go. An ancient voice boomed out of the three-eyed god. Lu Ming's eyes were solemn as he sized up the three-eyed god. This three-eyed god seemed to be very old and was about to die. The aura on his body was very weak and posed no threat to Lu Ming. Only then did Lu Ming feel relieved. Human youth, what's wrong? You're still afraid of me, a dying man? The old three-eyed man said. What are you doing here? Lu Ming asked. According to what he knew, there were some ruins here that the three-eyed god race couldn't enter at all. If they entered, they would definitely die. Moreover, this was one of the 9 great forbidden lands, so how did the three-eyed god race get in? Could it be that the three-eyed god race can enter the Sky Poison Island? How did I get in? Do you think I wanted to come in but was forced to? This world doesn't allow the existence of beings above the spiritual god realm. We're just a trial for your human race. The ancient three-eyed god let out a low roar. What do you know? Lu Ming's eyes flickered. He had always felt that there was a powerful existence behind all this. The Battle of Providence was really like a place for them to train. Who was controlling everything from behind the scenes? Do you want to know? I can tell you. The ancient three-eyed god said in a low voice. Lu Ming did not speak. He listened quietly and remained cautious. Although this old three-eyed god's aura was weak, Lu Ming still did not dare to be careless. According to the ancient records, our three-eyed god race is extremely powerful and dominates the world. Outside of this world, you humans are nothing more than losers to our three-eyed god race, nothing more than our dogs. The ancient three-eyed god sneered. Lu Ming still did not say anything. The old three-eyed god continued. In this world, a long time ago, the remaining powerful beings of the human race captured a group of my three-eyed god race and placed them in this world for my race to reproduce. Then, they used them to cultivate the geniuses of the human race. You tried to cultivate a peerless genius that could contend against my three-eyed god race in the outside world. What a fool's dream. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. What was the outside world that the old three-eyed god was talking about? It should not be the world that Lu Ming was in. Could it be heaven? Back then, the three-eyed god race had appeared on that small island in the heaven realm, and they had even said that they wanted to attack the primordial realm. Could it be that the Battle of Providence was being controlled by a mighty figure from the heaven realm? In an instant, Lu Ming had many thoughts in his heart. Therefore, in this world, it is impossible for anyone above the spiritual god realm to appear. As long as someone from my clan breaks through to the spiritual god realm, they will be suppressed or even killed. I was suppressed by the laws of heaven and earth when I broke through to the spiritual god realm. I escaped here with a serious injury. So, don't worry, I am not a threat to you. The ancient three-eyed god continued. No more? Lu Ming said. That's all. It's been too long and I only know this much? Boy, I'm just struggling on my last breath, suffering every day. Since I've said so much, come and get rid of me and let me be free. The ancient three-eyed god sighed. Kill you? Lu Ming's gaze flickered. That's right. I've been dragging my broken body and suffering every day. I'd rather die. How about you help me with this? The three-eyed man said. All right. Lu Ming's eyes flickered as he strode toward the three-eyed god. A long spear materialized in his hand and he aimed it at the three-eyed god. Right at this moment, the old three-eyed god's lips curled into a cold smile. In the next moment, a black shadow rushed out from his dantian and charged toward Lu Ming. I knew you would be like this. Lu Ming sneered and retreated quickly. The mountain and river diagram circled around him as he threw a punch. The terrifying force of the punch landed on the shadow. The shadow let out a shrill cry. Although it dispersed, it condensed again in the next moment and continued to charge at Lu Ming. However, it was blocked by the mountain and river diagram. With a shake, it was sent flying. This is the spirit god. Lu Ming was shocked. It was only now that he was able to clearly see the appearance of the shadow. It was actually a miniature three-eyed god, and it looked exactly like the ancient three-eyed god. This was clearly the spirit god that the ancient three-eyed god had condensed. This three-eyed god had almost stepped into the spiritual god realm, but it was a pity that he was suppressed. A half-finished spiritual god is about to disappear. Since you want to kill me, I'll fulfill your wish and kill you once and for all. Lu Ming took a step forward and continued to punch out with both his fists. One after another, his fists flew towards the spiritual god of the three-eyed god race. The spiritual god tried to dodge, but there were too many fist radiances. It was impossible for it to dodge all of them. It was struck by the fist radiances, and with every punch, the spiritual god would dissipate. Then, it would reform and become weaker. Chapter 944. 944. A dozen spirit gods. Boom. Boom. As the fist radiance continued to strike out, the spiritual god became even weaker. If it was an ordinary spiritual god, Lu Ming would definitely not be a match for him. However, this old three-eyed god was suppressed before he could even break through to the spiritual god realm. He could only be considered a half-spiritual god, and his body was severely injured. He was extremely weak and completely suppressed by Lu Ming. After a while, the spirit god swayed and flew back into the body of the old three-eyed god. The ancient three-eyed god let out a heaven-shaking roar. "Don't even think about getting the totem pole, I'm going to destroy it." With that, the old three-eyed god's body suddenly moved, and he pounced in a certain direction. Lu Ming's gaze swept across the cave. He saw a stone pillar about 3 meters tall at the side of the cave. There were various patterns carved on the stone pillar, such as dragons, phoenixes, and tigers. This is a totem pole. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He had been so focused on the old three-eyed god that he did not notice the totem pole. Without any hesitation, Lu Ming took a step forward and charged towards the old three-eyed god. A long spear materialized in his hand and he pierced through the old three-eyed god. Puchi. The spear pierced through the old three-eyed god's body, nailing him to the wall. "I'm not willing to accept this. My three-eyed god race will annihilate the human race sooner or later." And NBSP, ARG? The ancient three-eyed god let out a furious and unwilling roar, and then he died. Lu Ming's expression was calm. He could understand the old three-eyed divine being's unwillingness to give up. He had cultivated arduously for his entire life and was about to break through to the spiritual god realm, but he was suppressed and his entire life's efforts were in vain. He could only hide in this cave and wait for his life to run out before dying of old age here. However, the two of them were of different races and were hostile to each other. Lu Ming had no reason to sympathize with them. His gaze fell on the stone pillar. Is this the totem pole? The purpose of Lu Ming's visit was for it. Lu Ming walked to the bottom of the totem pole and hugged it with both hands. He lifted it with force but it did not move at all. "It's quite heavy." Lu Ming smiled faintly. He exerted all his strength, the essential core in his body exploded, and he pulled with all his might. Boom, boom, boom. The entire cave started to shake. Lu Ming slowly pulled out the totem pole. "Rise." Lu Ming shouted and pulled the mountain with all his might. The muscles all over his body bulged and he exerted force on his waist. With a loud bang, the totem pole was pulled up. However, at this moment, the totem pole suddenly glowed brightly. More than 10 rays of black light suddenly burst out and flew towards the space between Lu Ming's eyebrows. Not good. Lu Ming was shocked. This was because with a quick glance, he could see that the dozen or so rays of light were actually a dozen or so spiritual gods, all of them in the form of miniature three-eyed god race beings. At this moment, the skeleton of the old three-eyed divine race member flashed through Lu Ming's mind. Could those skeletons be the same as the ancient three-eyed god, the three-eyed god that was suppressed after breaking through to the spiritual god realm and died here? After they died, the spirit god attached itself to the totem pole. We've been tricked. Just now, the old three-eyed god pretended to destroy the totem pillar, but he was actually reminding Lu Ming that it was a totem pillar. He wanted to remind Lu Ming to pull it out, and once he pulled it out, the spiritual gods in the totem pillar would attack Lu Ming. However, at this moment, everything happened so suddenly. It was too late for Lu Ming to dodge. Whoosh, whoosh. More than 10 spiritual gods rushed into Lu Ming's glabella and into his sea of consciousness. Get out! Lu Ming roared and closed his eyes. His mind appeared in his sea of consciousness and condensed into a physical form. More than a dozen spiritual gods appeared in his spiritual sea, exuding all kinds of powerful auras. Kill? One of the spiritual gods exuded a strong aura of lightning. It seemed to have no intelligence and charged at Lu Ming. Fast, extremely fast. What a powerful thunder intent. These spiritual gods are formed by energy in the intent realm of heaven and earth. Their original owner's consciousness has been destroyed, and only their instinct is left. Their instinct to kill humans. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He immediately simulated the prison-suppressing heavenly art and threw a punch. Boom. Lu Ming's body went numb. He was sent flying and his body almost dissipated. Kill? At that moment, the other spiritual god turned into a beam of fire. An extremely rich concept of fire spread out and charged at Lu Ming. Boom. Lu Ming's body seemed to be on fire as he was sent flying. His entire body was in excruciating pain. These spiritual gods wanted to obliterate Lu Ming's mind and will. If Lu Ming's will was obliterated, it would be equivalent to his death. Whoosh. A ray of golden light cut through the clouds in his sea of consciousness and slashed at Lu Ming. The creation of gold. The wills of these spiritual gods were all at the fourth level and were extremely powerful. The fourth level intent realm of heaven and earth was the highest level. These people had already mastered the highest level of intent realm, which was many times stronger than the third level intent realm. Lu Ming's body was cut in half by the golden light, and a sharp pain that seeped into his soul came from his body. Lu Ming's body, which had been split in half, retreated rapidly and recondensed in the distance. However, his face was very pale. In his sea of consciousness, his body was formed by his mind. Even if it was split apart, it could still reform. However, the pain was real. His current situation was very dangerous. In the sea of consciousness, his body could indeed reform at will, but if he couldn't bear the pain and his will dissipated, his body would never be able to reform again, which meant his death. This was a test of will. My will is firm, how can I be destroyed by you? Lu Ming growled in a low voice. His eyes were extremely determined. Whoosh, whoosh. The two spiritual gods pounced on Lu Ming. Kill? In my sea of consciousness, let's see who will kill who? Lu Ming roared and pounced on the few spiritual gods. After a few moves, Lu Ming was still scattered. However, in the distance he condensed again. His will was firm and he was unmoved. They continued to fight. He used all of his knowledge in this sea of consciousness to fight against the dozen spiritual gods. His will was firm. No matter how great the pain was, he would not be moved and would fight with all his might. In the beginning, Lu Ming was completely at a disadvantage and had almost no power to fight back. However, the more Lu Ming fought, the braver he became. He was getting used to fighting in his sea of consciousness. 10 days later, Lu Ming severely injured a spiritual god with the concept of fire with one punch, breaking his arm. The broken arm turned into fire concept and entered Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming's comprehension of the fire concept had actually improved by a small margin. You can do this? Then you'll become my nourishment. Lu Ming's eyes shone with a bright light. He was in high spirits as he fought against these spiritual gods. Time passed day by day. Lu Ming's body continued to hold onto the totem pole. He stood in the cave unmoving. His true war dragon technique was actually circulating on its own, like a vortex, absorbing the spirit chi and origin chi of the surroundings. His cultivation base was slowly rising. In his sea of consciousness, the more he fought, the more courageous he became. A month later, a spiritual god was completely defeated by Lu Ming. The corresponding intent realm of heaven and earth was absorbed by Lu Ming, and his corresponding intent realm was improved by a large margin. Chapter 945. 945. A terrifying upgrade, Heaven and Earth Jade Essence. Time flew by. 1 month, 2 months. Lu Ming did not know how much time had passed. He only knew that there was a war. A great war. He was fighting with more than a dozen spirit gods. His will was incomparably firm. No matter how it was shattered, he could recover. It was as firm as a rock and there was nothing that could stop him. The dozen or so spiritual gods were defeated and scattered by Lu Ming one after another. The amazing thing was that the intent of the spiritual gods would integrate into Lu Ming's intent rune. His understanding of a certain intent rune would be greatly improved. There were more than a dozen spiritual gods, and they contained all kinds of intents. Boom. Boom. Lu Ming did not know when, but there was only one spiritual god left in his sea of consciousness. This spiritual god has comprehended the earth essence realm. What a strong defense. Lu Ming was somewhat speechless. This spiritual god was protected by the intent of earth and was like a turtle shell. It was the most difficult to deal with. Lu Ming and the spiritual god continued to fight. Slowly 3 days passed. Finally, Lu Ming broke through the defense and defeated the spiritual god. Lu Ming could feel that his earth concept had improved a lot. Haha, that old three-eyed god was trying to harm me, but who would have thought that he'd help me instead? My 4 intents have all improved by a huge margin. Lu Ming laughed. With a thought, he returned to his body. He found that he was still holding the totem pole and standing there. I don't even know how long I've been fighting with those spiritual gods. Feels like a long time has passed. However, the Battle of Kismet shouldn't be over yet. Otherwise, I would have been teleported out. Lu Ming thought to himself. My cultivation level? Suddenly, Lu Ming's heart trembled. He sensed it and immediately found that the true qi in his body was surging and extremely strong. It was much stronger than before. 7th level of the Spirit Embryo Realm. This is the 7th level of the Spirit Embryo Realm. Lu Ming was dumbfounded, his eyes filled with disbelief. He had only killed a dozen or so spiritual gods in his sea of consciousness, but his cultivation had actually increased by 3 levels, from the 4th level Spirit Embryo Realm to the early stage of the 7th level Spirit Embryo Realm. This was simply inconceivable. Take a look at my intent realm. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat and he was overjoyed. His wind, fire and lightning intents had all reached the peak of level 3 upper tier. He was only 1 step away from the completion of level 3. The earth intent was slightly weaker, but it had also reached the late stage of level 3 upper tier. It had improved too much. How long has it been? My cultivation base has actually improved so much? It's too shocking. Lu Ming pondered secretly. At the same time he was extremely happy. This was an opportunity, a great opportunity. What a powerful force. With my current combat strength I can definitely kill Luo Tian easily. Lu Ming felt the majestic energy in his body and his eyes were filled with anticipation. Of course he was referring to the Luo Tian of the past. He did not know how much time had passed and whether Luo Tian's cultivation had improved. There's something down there. At this moment, Lu Ming noticed that there was something strange under the totem pole. With a thought, the totem pole was kept into his storage ring. There was a pit where the totem pole had been pulled out. Under the pit, a piece of iron with strange patterns could be seen. The iron block seemed to be very large and only a part of it was exposed in the pit. The rest of it was covered by rocks on the ground. Lu Ming pried open the rock and realized that it was not an iron block but a huge iron box. Lu Ming took out the iron box. What was in this metal box? Lu Ming was a little curious and opened the metal box. In the iron box, there were 2 jade figures that were as tall as humans. Yes, jade figures as if they were carved out of huge precious jade. The jade figure emitted a shocking amount of life essence. Lu Ming's pupils contracted sharply. He thought of a kind of treasure, heaven and earth jade essence. That's right, this wasn't a jade person sculpted from jade, but a heaven and earth jade essence. The heaven and earth jade essence was said to be a type of supreme jade. After countless years, it absorbed the essence of heaven and earth and was born by chance. If this kind of living being completely awakens its intelligence and is born, it will be extremely terrifying. Legend had it that a long time ago, a mature heaven and earth jade essence was born in the eastern wilderness. It was extremely terrifying and invincible. It could compete with or even be stronger than a martial emperor. He had stirred up a storm of blood in the East continent and was killed by a stronger being. It was extremely difficult for this heaven and earth jade essence to fully mature. Once it matured, it would be invincible in the world. However, a jade essence that had not matured and had not awakened its spiritual wisdom was a rare supreme treasure. It could really be described as rare. This was because a heaven and earth jade essence, combined with some other materials, could be used to refine a perfect body. If a spiritual god realm master's life was coming to an end, he could attach his spiritual god to the body refined by the heaven and earth jade and live another life. How precious was this? Lu Ming actually obtained 2 here. His heart was beating rapidly. At this moment he thought of the 9 Suns Paragon. If the 9 Suns Paragon had this heaven and earth jade essence, he could completely reform his physical body and return to the world. That's great. At this moment, Lu Ming's heart was filled with excitement. He was 10 times, no, 100 times more excited than when he found out that his cultivation had improved greatly. Along the way the 9 Suns Supreme had helped him too much. His current achievements were all because of the 9 Suns Supreme. Otherwise, he would still be a piece of trash who had his bloodline taken away from the Lu family of the fiery wind city of the Blazing Sun Empire. He might have been killed by someone else long ago. There was one thing that had always been on his mind, and that was to find a treasure for 9 Suns Supreme to form a new physical body. Now he had finally found it. Lu Ming took a deep breath and calmed his excited mood. And a jade talisman. Lu Ming found a jade talisman beside the 2 heaven and earth jade spirits. Lu Ming picked it up and took a look. He knew that it was a kind of secret book that recorded cultivation techniques or jade talismans that recorded things. With a sweep of his mind, Lu Ming realized that this was a secret skill. Twin Forbidden Spell. This was the name of the secret skill. What a strange name. Lu Ming began to read the content. At one glance, Lu Ming was shocked and his eyes widened. What a wonderful secret skill. What a strange secret skill. What a shocking secret skill. Lu Ming exclaimed continuously. According to the records of the Twin Forbidden Spell, this secret skill could actually cultivate one person into 2. That's right, there was a huge difference between cultivating 2 people and cultivating a clone. Using the heaven and earth jade essence as the material, one soul would be split into 2 and another one would be formed. This self would become the second body while the main body would be the main body. This was completely different from a clone. This was because, generally speaking, a clone could only have a portion of the original's combat strength and could not cultivate. The strength it had when it was cultivated would always be the same. However, the Twin Forbidden Spell was different. The clone he condensed was basically the same as the main body. They had the same strength and aura. They could even cultivate, comprehend, and even communicate with each other. This was terrifying and heaven-defying. This was equivalent to 2 people cultivating. The only difference was that the clone had no consciousness. It was controlled by the main body and had no distracting thoughts. It would only focus on cultivation. This was simply faster than the cultivation of the main body. Moreover, if the main body accidentally died, the consciousness could awaken in the secondary body. This was equivalent to having an extra life. How heaven-defying was this? However, there was a warning at the end of the Forbidden Twin chant. This was a forbidden technique that could only be used once in a lifetime. Otherwise, it would lead to self-destruction. Chapter 946. 946 people from the outer continent. Furthermore, the Twin Forbidden Art had a chance of success. If he failed the first time and tried again, the danger would increase. Amazing, too amazing. No wonder there are 2 heaven and earth jade essence here. It was prepared for the Twin Forbidden Spell. Lu Ming was amazed and his heart was pounding. Anyone would be tempted by such a heaven-defying secret technique. It just so happens that I have 2 heaven and earth jade essences. I'll give one to Senior Jianghu, and I'll keep the other one to practice the Twin Forbidden Spell. If I can't succeed in one attempt, then I'll give up. Lu Ming pondered in his heart. Then he carefully closed the metal box and put it away. It was impossible to cultivate such a secret skill now. Other than the heaven and earth jade essence, he needed other materials, especially those that could nurture the soul. He could only cultivate it after the War of Providence was over. Let's take a look at the Book of Destiny. With a thought, the Book of Destiny appeared. Lu Ming realized that his luck value had reached more than 300,000. In other words, this trip to the Sky Poison Island had increased his luck value by more than 200,000. This time it was a truly great opportunity. 9 totem pillars appeared? Lu Ming's eyes suddenly narrowed. He realized that the notification from the Book of Destiny stated that 9 totem pillars had appeared. There was one more pillar to go before he could open the ancient city of Providence. It seems that a lot of time has really passed. The Battle of Providence is probably ending soon. Lu Ming estimated that he had stayed here for at least a few months. Time to go out. After keeping the items, Lu Ming looked around and made sure that there were no other items. He then strode outside. When he walked out of the cave, the thick poisonous gas was still outside. Lu Ming released the devouring power to cover his entire body and resist the poisonous gas. He then strode out. After leaving the cave, Lu Ming's footsteps became faster and faster. He traveled thousands of miles in the blink of an eye. After that, poisonous insects began to appear. However, Lu Ming's cultivation level had improved greatly and his combat strength was much stronger than before. Naturally, he could pass through them easily. Along the way, he also found many spiritual herbs and picked them up. Soon Lu Ming arrived at the edge of the Sky Poison Island. On the surface of the lake, there was a thick green poisonous gas floating around. The poisonous gas would only dissipate once every 3 months. Clearly it was not time yet. No, I can't wait any longer. If the Battle of Kismet is in 10 days or half a month, I'll miss it if I stay here. If I rush out, the mountain and river diagram should be able to stop me, right? Lu Ming had a thought and entered the mountain and river diagram. In the air, there was only one scroll of the mountain and river diagram floating. Lu Ming controlled the mountain and river diagram from within and flew towards the surface of the lake. Instantly, the mountain and river diagram was surrounded by poisonous gas. Fortunately, the mountain and river diagram's materials were extraordinary and of a very high level. It successfully resisted the invasion of the poisonous gas. Very quickly, the mountain and river diagram crossed the lake's surface and returned to the shore. Lu Ming appeared from the mountain and river diagram and put it away. Phew, I'm finally out. Let's go find Qi Shui and the others. Let's see how long it'll be before the Battle of Providence ends. I wonder what happened during this time. Lu Ming turned into a ray of light and flew into the distance. During this period he tried to send messages to Bai Qi Shui, Wen Zhongli and the others using the Jade Talisman, but they could not get out. It seemed that they were too far apart. Lu Ming could only fly and search. After flying for a day and covering a few million miles, Lu Ming did not encounter a single person. Not only did he not encounter a single person, he didn't even encounter the three-eyed god race. Strange, something's not right. I've flown for millions of miles, it's impossible that I didn't encounter a single person. Lu Ming furrowed his brows. He felt very strange. He went back to where Bai Qi Shui and the others had gathered, but there was no one there. Apparently they had left a long time ago. I don't believe this. Let's go take a look at the three-eyed god race's royal city and capture a few of them to ask about the situation. With a single thought, Lu Ming headed in the direction of the three-eyed god's royal city according to the map he had obtained from the three-eyed god. The capital city of the three-eyed god race was at the center of this world. Lu Ming flew for an entire day before he neared the borders of the capital. Whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly there were 2 blood-red rays of light in front of them, shooting towards the north. Just as Lu Ming was overjoyed and was about to give chase, the 2 rays of light suddenly stopped and flew toward Lu Ming. The light dissipated and 2 young men appeared. 2 young men in blood-red robes with long sabers on their backs exuded a powerful and bloody saber intent. Could they be from the Heavenly Corpse sect? Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He stared at the 2 young men without saying a word. Aha, there's still someone from the Divine Wilderness continent here. He actually dares to run around on his own. Just in time to kill him, and his fate points will belong to us. A young man with a big mole on his chin looked at Lu Ming coldly. His luck value is yours. His storage ring is mine. The other young man spoke as well, looking as if Lu Ming was dead for sure. Lu Ming's heart suddenly trembled and his mind was spinning rapidly. They call us people from the Divine Wilderness continent? The people of the Divine Wilderness continent would never address them this way. Could it be that these 2 people were not from the Divine Wilderness continent? But how is that possible? Lu Ming's heart was in turmoil. Since ancient times, the war for karmic luck had always been carried out on its own. The Divine Wilderness continent's 5 huge regions carried out their own activities. They had never done it together before. Furthermore, it was done by people from the other continents. Now, why would someone from another continent appear? It seemed that while Lu Ming was on the Sky Poison Island, there had been some changes outside. This kid isn't speaking. Is he a mute? The young man with the mole on his chin sneered. Who cares what he is, just kill him. Another youth said. Where are you guys from? At this moment Lu Ming suddenly spoke. So you're not a mute? Death is near, so there's no harm in telling you. We're from the Bloodblade continent. Die, kid. The young man with the mole sneered. The saber intent on his body soared. A blood-red saber energy, thousands of meters long, slashed at Lu Ming. These 2 youths had extremely powerful auras and had reached the 5th level spirit embryo realm. If they were placed before Lu Ming entered the Sky Poison Island, they would be ranked in the 40th or 50th on the list of top 1,000 talents. Bang. Lu Ming waved his hand slightly and the blood-colored astral saber collapsed. The 2 young men's expressions changed. The 2 young men's eyes turned serious when they saw that the man was able to shatter the mole-faced young man's saber energy so easily. The Bloodblade continent? Why are you here? Also, where are the Divine Wilderness Continent's elites? Lu Ming took a step forward. His eyes turned cold and he asked a few questions. Kid, go to hell and ask. The mole-faced young man shouted coldly as his killing intent exploded. His blood-chi soared into the sky and turned into a huge saber. This cultivation technique was similar to the cultivation technique of the seventh blood sword of the Heavenly Corpse sect, but the cultivation technique of the people of the Bloodblade continent was purer. Let's attack together. The other young man shouted coldly as his saber aura expanded. The blood-red saber aura actually contained the aura of fire. Chapter 947. 947 Talisman Sect Disciples in Danger. Whoosh, whoosh. Two blood-colored astral blades slashed down at Lu Ming with terrifying power. Lu Ming snorted coldly. He strode forward and slapped twice. With two crisp sounds, the two blood-red sword gleams were shattered. The pupils of the two young men from the Bloodblade continent contracted rapidly, and their eyes revealed extreme shock. The two of them had used almost all their strength in the two slashes just now, but they were easily defeated by Lu Ming. Not good, it's a top expert, let's go. The mole-faced young man shouted and turned to run. The other person felt the same way. They knew that they had encountered one of the top elites of the Divine Wilderness continent. Lu Ming snorted coldly. He took a step forward and his body was like a stream of light. In the next moment he had caught up with the two of them and struck out with his palms twice. Although the two of them tried their best to block, they were still hit and spat out large mouthfuls of blood. They crashed into the ground and left a huge pit in the ground. Lu Ming descended, and his immense aura enveloped the two of them. He said coldly, "Speak, where are the people from the Divine Wilderness continent?" "Don't even think about it. If I say it, won't I still die? Anyway, I won't tell you if I die." The mole-faced young man's eyes were filled with madness. At the same time, a blood-red light flashed, and the blood in his body seemed to be burning. With a loud roar, he turned into a blade light and rushed in a direction. The other young man also looked crazy. He turned into a blade light and rushed in another direction. "You're looking for death." With the 9 dragons heaven treading steps, Lu Ming was the first to chase after the young man with the big mole. With Lu Ming's current cultivation base, how fast would he be if he used the 9 dragons heaven treading steps? He caught up to the mole-faced young man in a few moments and killed him with a punch. Immediately, Lu Ming turned around and charged at another person. Kill? That person was extremely crazy. Seeing that he could not escape, his eyes turned red and he charged towards Lu Ming like a wild beast. However, there was a huge difference in their abilities and they were easily killed by Lu Ming. Lu Ming furrowed his brows slightly. The cultivation technique of the people from the Bloodblade continent was overbearing and they were not afraid of death. They were extremely crazy, and Lu Ming did not manage to get any information from them. The bloodline of the 9 dragons appeared and devoured the blood essence and energy of the 2 young men from the Bloodblade continent. Just now the 2 of them were heading north. Perhaps, if we head north we might be able to find something. With an idea in mind, Lu Ming flew north. To the north of Lu Ming, a million miles away, a huge battle was going on in the mountains. On a mountain peak, light flickered and was incomparably dazzling. Inscriptions filled the air and many large arrays appeared, forming a light barrier that covered the entire mountain peak within. There were about a few hundred people on the mountain peak. All of them were disciples of the Talisman sect. Some of them were sitting cross-legged, while others were constantly inscribing inscriptions around the mountain. The one in the lead had long Esilavira hair and 2 eyes. He was Huanjin. With him as the leader, Wenqini by Qishue Ji Mai and the others were also among them. Whoosh, whoosh. Outside the mountain peak, a blood-red blade light rose. It was extremely terrifying, as if it wanted to split the heavens and earth apart. It slashed towards Huanjin and the others. The blade light struck the light shield, causing it to tremble. Huanjin and the others also trembled slightly. There were more than a dozen people around the mountain peak, but a few of them had shocking auras and were extremely terrifying. Every one of them was wearing a blood-red robe and carrying a blood-red saber. He was dressed exactly the same as the 2 youths from the Bloodblade continent that Lu Ming had met before. Talisman Amulet Sect, with your measly strength, you can all die. A young man with long blood-red hair said coldly. His strength was the most terrifying and his aura was powerful. With a single slash, the light shield trembled violently. Why are you so ruthless? Our talisman amulet sect has no intention of fighting with you for the last totem pole. Huanjin said. Hee, a bunch of flies. They're in the way. Moreover, you have quite a lot of luck points. You'll be a piece of fat meat even if I snatch you. The blood-red-haired youth laughed coldly. The other young men also sneered. More than a dozen of them attacked together, and the blade light kept slashing toward the mountain peak. When Zhongli, Bai Qixue and the rest were trembling, they had used up a lot of their spiritual power. If this continued, their spiritual power would be completely depleted. Once they lost the protection of the formation, the talisman amulet sect's disciples would be killed by the other party. The other party was too powerful. This was only a portion of the Bloodblade Continent's people, but there were two people who were on the same level as Huanzhen. Once the formation was broken, Huanzhen could only stop one person. The other person could easily kill the others. Furthermore, the other 10 or so young men were also extremely powerful. Some people revealed bitter expressions. The battle for Providence this time was beyond their imagination. To think that the chosen of other continents would intervene. It was even more dangerous than the previous battles for Providence. If they didn't handle it well, the talisman sect would be completely annihilated. I'll inscribe a formation later to block them with all my strength. You guys hurry up and leave. Huanzhen suddenly sent a message to Wen Zhongli, Bai Qixue and the others. Senior brother Huanzhen, we can't leave together. Wen Zhongli said hurriedly. If Huanzhen left only one person to stop them, they would definitely be in trouble. That's right, we'll leave together and stay together. The others also called out. None of you can escape, Blood God Saber Wheel. Break. The young man with long blood-red hair shouted coldly. An even more terrifying aura burst out from his body. A huge blood-red wheel appeared above his head. This blood-red wheel seemed to be made up of countless blood-red sabers. It spun rapidly and was as big as a mountain. It crushed toward the light shield on the mountain. Not good, hold on. Huanzhen and the others' expressions changed. The mental energy fire between their brows throbbed rapidly, spreading out and surging into the inscriptions around them. Boom. The blood-colored wheel of blades hit the light shield of the mountain heavily. The earth rumbled and the mountain shook violently. The light shields that covered the mountain shattered one after another. And NBSP, Huanzhen and the others' expressions changed and their bodies trembled. Those with lower cultivation spat out blood. The disciples who were sitting cross-legged or in the middle of recovery or healing also stood up to help guard the array. However, the blood-red wheel of blades was too terrifying. It kept spinning like countless sabers, constantly slashing at the light shield. Bang, bang, bang. The light shield continued to explode and was about to be completely shattered. Release the puppets and use the inscription scrolls to open up a path. Charge out. Huanjin shouted. At this moment, with a loud bang, all the arrays collapsed and the light shield was shattered. Many talisman puppet sect disciples released their puppets and surrounded the crowd. At the same time, a series of inscription scrolls were activated, either to protect them slaviers or to attack, and they all rushed in one direction. You want to escape? All of you die. The red-haired young man controlled the huge wheel of blades and pressed forward, shattering countless puppets. More than a dozen blade lights slashed out, attacking the puppet and the inscription scrolls. Although the talisman amulet sect had many people, most of their combat strength was not strong. They were far from the top experts of the Bloodblade continent. The weakest of the dozen or so people from the Bloodblade continent were 4th-level spirit embryo realm prodigies. Ah! Screams rang out as a talisman sect disciple was killed. Chapter 948. 948 Chapter 948 Domineering Kill. Damn it! Huanzhen and the others roared and retaliated. However, the blood-haired young man had his eyes on Huanzhen and used his huge wheel of blades to suppress him. No matter how strong Huanzhen was, he could only barely protect himself. Haha, die. A skinny monkey-like young man from the Bloodblade continent was extremely agile. He was like an agile flying knife that constantly flickered. Blade light crisscrossed and shattered a few puppets. A few bolts of lightning were sent flying, and he killed a talisman amulet sect disciple with a single strike. Then he took a deep breath and absorbed the blood chi of the talisman sect disciple he had killed through his nose. Haha, it's so delicious. This blood chi. The skinny monkey-like young man's face was filled with enjoyment, but his gaze became even more sinister. Whoosh. At this moment, a spear radiance pierced through the void from the south. It was extremely fast as it stabbed towards Shouho. What is it? The skinny monkey was shocked. He wanted to dodge immediately, but he realized that he was completely locked on by the spear radiance. The terrifying killing intent enveloped his body and he had no way to take it away. He could only use all his strength to resist. A terrifying blade light shot out from Shouho's hand. However, when it clashed with the spear light, the blade light was shattered. The spear light burst out and pierced through Shouho's throat. Skinny Monkey's eyes were wide open, full of unwillingness, and then he died. Whoosh, whoosh. In the distance, more than a dozen spear lights flew over and stabbed at more than a dozen heaven's favorites from the Bloodblade continent. Ah! Several screams were heard as several experts from the Bloodblade continent were killed. Who is it? You should die. The red-haired young man roared in anger and controlled the huge blade wheel to block the remaining spear radiance. The other paragons of the Bloodblade continent were shocked. They didn't continue to surround the talisman amulet sect's disciples. Instead, they moved closer to the blood-haired youth and looked in the direction of the spear light. Huanzhen and the others looked in that direction. Who would come to save their talisman amulet sect? A blue-robed young man stepped through the air and appeared before everyone. Lu Ming, it's Lu Ming. Bai Qixue was the first to shout. The person who had attacked just now was Lu Ming, who had come all the way from the south. On his way to the north, he didn't expect to encounter the experts of the Bloodblade continent besieging the Talisman Puppet Sect's disciples. Needless to say, the two youths from the Bloodblade continent were most likely here to help. Lu Ming, he's not dead. When Zhisher, Gong Fei and the rest were overjoyed. Previously, on the Sky Poison Island, Lu Ming had gone all the way and never came back. Later, the poison gas sealed the island and everyone who had not died had left the Sky Poison Island, but Lu Ming did not come out. When Zhisher and Gong Fei thought that Lu Ming had met with an accident in the depths of the Sky Poison Island and had died. After they brought the news back, the disciples of the Talisman sect sighed and Bai Qixue even cried a few times. He did not expect that Lu Ming was not dead and had even appeared at this time. Lu Ming, leave quickly. Leave this place quickly. Bai Qixue's face suddenly changed and she shouted. Lu Ming, leave quickly. When Zhisher also shouted. Although Lu Ming was strong, he had easily killed a few fourth-level Spirit Embryo Realm geniuses. This was enough to prove that Lu Ming's strength had improved again. However, they were definitely no match for the red-haired young man. They were strong enough to fight with the top 10 on the list of top 1,000 talents. Even Huanzhen was at a disadvantage. Lu Ming was here. Wasn't he courting death? It's too late to leave now. You have to pay with your life for killing my people. The red-haired young man's voice was extremely cold. The huge wheel of blades was floating above his head, emitting a terrifying aura. It was a powerful secret treasure. You've killed my talisman amulet sect's disciples. All of you must die. Lu Ming did not retreat. He continued to walk forward step by step. His voice was even colder than the blood-haired young man's. What big words. I'll kill him. A burly young man stepped out. He was more than 2 meters tall, 2 heads taller than Lu Ming. The muscles on his body bulged and he was filled with explosive power. He held a huge sword the size of a door and stared at Lu Ming like a wild beast. Buzz. He held the sword with both hands and rushed toward Lu Ming, slashing down. The 6th level of Spirit Embryo Realm was this youth's cultivation. A dragon's roar was heard. Lu Ming burst out with dragon energy. Scales covered his entire body as he threw a punch. Clang. The fist hit the saber, causing it to shake. Then, under everyone's horrified eyes, it collapsed and metal fragments flew everywhere. Lu Ming's figure did not stop, nor did his fist. He continued to blast out. Bang. The fist landed on the burly young man's body. The burly young man screamed as a big hole was pierced through his chest. He was killed immediately. The devouring power in his hand burst out, and the burly young man turned into a dry corpse in front of everyone's horrified eyes. He's so strong. Lu Ming Zongzi is so strong. One of the Talisman Amulet sect's disciples said excitedly. A peerless genius of the 6th level Spirit Embryo Realm had been killed by Lu Ming with a single punch. What kind of combat strength did Lu Ming have? Bai Qixue and the others opened their eyes wide. Lu Ming's combat strength is much stronger than it was 5 months ago. When Lezhang said, "Can he be a match for those people?" Bai Qishua looked at the red-haired young man, still worried. I don't know. Wen Zhishe shook his head. At this moment, the young men from the Bloodblade continent also widened their eyes in shock. The red-haired young man's eyes also became serious. Kill? Lu Ming shouted. His fighting spirit was like a rainbow, and his killing intent was like a tide. His figure was like lightning as he charged directly at the youth from the Bloodblade continent. Let's attack together and kill him. The red-haired young man shouted and controlled the huge wheel of blades to attack Lu Ming. Lu Ming's glabella glowed and the mountain and river diagram appeared. It expanded rapidly and surrounded the huge wheel of blades. The huge wheel of blades kept spinning and bombarding, but it could not break through the defense of the mountain and river diagram. Damn it. I'll still kill you even without the knife wheel. The red-haired young man shouted coldly and slashed with his saber. There was another youth who was just as terrifying. His cultivation was at the 7th level of the spirit embryo realm, and his combat strength was extremely shocking. He was definitely not weaker than the demonic Lord Luo Tian. Both of them were comparable to the top 10 on the list of top 1,000 talents. Roar. The bloodline of the 9 dragons emerged, and it opened its mouth to roar. Its devouring power erupted, enveloping all the youths of the Bloodblade continent. Those with lower cultivation bases trembled, and their eyes filled with shock. Their true yuan and qi were unstable, and they were about to be forcibly devoured. Bang! Bang! Lu Ming instantly struck 5 palms and kicked 6 times, killing 5 youths from the Bloodblade continent. He also used his shoulder to kill another person. On the Sky Poison Island, Lu Ming had fought with more than a dozen spiritual gods in his sea of consciousness for a long time. Besides the increase in his cultivation, his use of martial arts techniques had also been greatly improved. Now, every muscle and bone in his body could use the prison-suppressing heavenly art. Even his hair could use the prison-suppressing heavenly art. With a wave of his hand, it contained the supreme power to suppress the 9 nether prison. At the same level, his combat strength was much stronger. It had increased by 30%. Chapter 949. 949 5 more days. In other words, Lu Ming's combat strength was 30% stronger than his own before he entered the Sky Poison Island. Before he entered the Sky Poison Island, he was no match for the current him in a battle of the same level. In other words, his ability to fight above his level had become stronger. Boom. Boom. There were 2 loud bangs. Only the blood-haired young man and the other 2 most powerful people could compete with Lu Ming. However, they were also shocked. Lu Ming could actually kill the other experts while fighting the 2 of them. His combat strength was terrifyingly strong. Buzz. Buzz. The saber chi soared to the sky, and the remaining people all unleashed their bloodlines. They were all blood-red warblade bloodlines, but their levels were different. There were 6 golden chakras on the blades of the red-haired young man and the other young man. Divine level rank 6 bloodline. As for the remaining few, they all had 5th level divine level bloodlines. The rest of the people used bloodline fusion at the same time, turning into blood-red sabers with shocking saber intent. Lu Ming, let me help you. Huan Zhen stepped into the air. With every step, runes filled the air. No need. Help me hold the line and prevent anyone from escaping. Lu Ming said. This made Huan Zhen stunned. Was Lu Ming going to make everyone from the Bloodblade continent stay here? Isn't he too confident? The other Talisman sect members looked at each other in shock and anticipation. Such big words, watch how I kill you. One of the sabers let out a furious roar and expanded to 1,000 meters in size, slashing toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming's figure flashed and merged with the 9 dragon bloodline. The 9 dragon bloodline roared and its 9 claws stepped out. Boom. Boom. Violent energy blasted out. Other than the 2 divine level 6 blood sabers, the other blood sabers all exploded and turned back into human form. They fell to the ground and were no longer alive. The 2 divine level 6 blood sabers were also trembling non-stop. Their saber chi collapsed and they were sent flying. The 2 of them were at the 7th level spirit embryo realm, the same level as Lu Ming. How could they be his match? Lu Ming had never met an opponent of the same level. Not good, he's too strong. Let's go, split up. The blood-haired young man's shocked voice came from one of the blood-red blades. Lu Ming's performance had far exceeded his expectations. Buzz. Buzz. The 2 blood-red blades fled in 2 different directions. Where should we go? In one of the directions, a formation appeared, and an illusory figure suddenly appeared there, blocking a blood-red saber. Dodge! A voice came from the blood saber and the saber light slashed at Huan Zhen. Huan Zhen's Silavira hair danced in the wind and his eyes glowed with Silavira light. Around him, formations appeared and turned into Silavira swords that slashed at bloody blade. Boom! Boom! The rumbling continued and the blood-red saber could not break through it all. Lu Ming transformed into 9 dragons. His dragon claw stepped in the air and caught up with the other blood saber. The blood-red saber was transformed from the blood-haired young man. The 9 dragons clawed at the blood saber. Seeing that he couldn't escape, the bloody blade let out an angry roar, and its blade chi rose sharply, slashing at the 9 dragons. However, under the 9 dragons' all-conquering dragon claws, they were all in vain and the saber chi was destroyed. Clang! Clang! The 9 dragon claws grabbed the blood-red saber one after another and pulled with all their might. The blood-red saber shattered into pieces with a bang, and the figure of the red-haired young man reappeared in the air. At this moment, his face was full of panic, and his eyes were filled with horror. The 9 dragons twisted their bodies and charged at him. Even if you can kill me, I won't let you have an easy time. The red-haired young man had a ferocious look on his face. He pounced on Lu Ming without fear of death. It was a pity that there was a huge gap between his combat strength and Lu Ming's. It was not something that could be made up for by fearlessness. After a few moves he was torn apart by Lu Ming and died on the spot. Then the dragon twisted its body and pounced at the last youth from the Bloodblade continent. The result was destined. Lu Ming and Huan Zhen were together and the young man was killed in a few moves. Not far away, the Talisman sect's disciples were completely silent. Their eyes were wide open and filled with shock. The group of powerful Bloodblade continent's young men who had followed Lu Ming here were killed in an instant. Among them, 2 of them were comparable to the top 10 on the list of top 1,000 talents. Such people were also killed by Lu Ming. This was simply unbelievable. It made them feel like they were in a dream. The Talisman sect disciples who had been with Lu Ming were still in a better state. However, those who had not seen Lu Ming since the Battle of Providence were even more shocked. Before the Battle of Providence, although Lu Ming was strong, there was still a huge gap between him and the top 10 on the list of top 1,000 talents. Not many people thought that Lu Ming could compete with such a figure. First, Lu Ming could kill such a figure. After the shock, it was ecstasy. Lu Ming was the candidate of the Talisman sect. The stronger he was, the stronger the Talisman sect would be. Naturally, they would be happy. Devouring power burst out of the mouths of the 9 dragon bloodline cultivators, devouring all the vital essence and blood essence of the Bloodblade continent cultivators. Now, Lu Ming no longer had to worry about using the 9 dragon bloodline. After devouring, Lu Ming transformed back into his human form. Lu Ming, thank you very much for this. Huan Zhen cupped his fists. His eyes were filled with surprise. Lu Ming's progress was too great. Truth be told, when he first met Lu Ming, although Huan Zhen was very polite, that was just his personality. He did not expect Lu Ming to reach this level and did not treat Lu Ming as a prodigy of his level. But now, not only had Lu Ming achieved it, but his ability had probably surpassed him. No need to thank me. Fortunately, I'm not late. Lu Ming said. Lu Ming, where have you been all this time? Why don't I see him? The other disciples of the Talisman Amulet sect also surrounded him. Bai Qixue glared at Lu Ming, her eyes filled with joy and resentment. That's right, Lu Ming. Our little Scarlet Snow has been very worried about you during this period of time. She misses you so much that she doesn't even have the appetite to eat or drink. Ah. On the side, Wen Zhisher teased. Senior brother Wen Yu. Nonsense, what does his life or death have to do with me? Bai Qixue stomped her feet and her face turned red. Haha, you're shy. Wen Zhongli laughed out loud. On the side, the others also laughed. Having escaped death, everyone was very relaxed. Bai Qixue's face and neck turned even redder. She did not dare to look at Lu Ming. Looking at Bai Qixue's shy expression, Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. This girl, don't tell me she really likes me. It seems that I can't tease her in the future. Lu Ming thought in his heart. What's going on with the people of the Bloodblade continent? Why was everyone attacked by the people of the Bloodblade continent? Also, how much longer is there until the Battle of Kismet ends in a year? Lu Ming quickly changed the topic and asked. As he spoke, he refined the energy that he had devoured. Most of the youths from the Bloodblade continent cultivated either the blood or blade concepts, which were of no use to him. Lu Ming, there's only 5 days left until the 1-year Battle of Providence. Wang Jin said. 5 days? I've actually stayed on the Sky Poison Island for more than 5 months. Lu Ming was secretly shocked. Chapter 950. 950 Reason. Although he had guessed that he had stayed on the Sky Poison Island for a long time, he did not expect that it had already been more than 5 months. If he had been any later, the Battle of Providence would have ended directly. It was no wonder that his cultivation had soared so quickly. In the past 5 months he had advanced 3 cultivation realms. That was not too fast. After all, he had the bloodline of the 9 dragons. If he were to fight with the 3-eyed god race outside, he might be able to increase his cultivation by 2 or 3 levels. Lu Ming, you went deep into the Sky Poison Island and never came back. The poisonous gas inside was too strong and we couldn't go in. We were really afraid that something had happened to you. What happened to you on the Sky Poison Island? When Zhongli asked. Lu Ming then told him about his encounter with the 3-eyed god. Everyone clicked their tongues in wonder. Lu Ming had actually encountered the attacks of more than 10 spiritual gods from the 3-eyed god race on the Sky Poison Island. Furthermore, the battle in his sea of consciousness had lasted for several months. In the end, his skills had even improved greatly. It was truly amazing. After all, when a spiritual god realm master lost his physical body, his spiritual god would not stay in the world for long and would dissipate. Only some special treasures could allow the spirit god to be preserved. The totem pole of the Sky Poison Island was probably that kind of treasure. However, there was something strange about it. Even the totems of the other 8 forbidden areas did not have a spirit god attached to them. Lu Ming guessed that it was most likely related to the Sky Poison Island. There was not a trace of poisonous gas in that cave. Instead, it was filled with spiritual qi and origin qi. When Zhisher was good with words, he immediately started to explain what had happened during this period of time. About half a month ago, the 9 forbidden grounds were all broken and the 9 totem pillars were obtained. Only the final totem pillar in the 3-eyed god race's capital remained. As long as he obtained this final totem pillar, he would be able to open the ancient city of Providence. However, at this moment, a heaven's favorite from another continent appeared. It was the heaven's favorite from the Bloodblade continent. As soon as the Bloodblade continent's heaven's favorites entered, they started to kill. Many of the 4 overlord forces' heaven's favorites were killed. After the slaughter, they knew that the prodigies of the Bloodblade continent were also participating in the battle for Providence. They had also completed their mission, and their final goal was the final totem pillar in the 3-eyed god race's capital. If the Bloodblade continent could obtain that totem pillar, they would be able to open their ancient city of Providence. Whoever managed to obtain the last totem pillar would be able to open the ancient city of Providence, and those who failed to do so would be considered to have failed. The heaven's favorites of the Bloodblade continent were very powerful, even slightly stronger than those of the East continent. More importantly, they were all very united and seemed to come from the same force. The 4 overlords of the Eastern Barren Territory were too scattered and suffered a crushing defeat in the beginning. In the end, the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace, the Heavenly Corpse Sect, and the Sky Demon Valley had to join forces to have the strength to contend with the Bloodblade continent. As for the Talisman Amulet Sect, they were directly excluded by the 3 major factions. They refused to let the Talisman Amulet Sect join. It was obvious that they wanted to use the Bloodblade continent to destroy the Talisman Amulet Sect. The Talisman Amulet Sect had been hiding under the leadership of the Zongzis from fantasy reality. However, they were still found by the Bloodblade continent 2 days ago, which was why they had fought. AI. It's a pity that Guan Tao, Lu Song, and a few others have all died in battle. When Zhisher sighed. Guan Tao and Lu Song were the Talisman Sect's top 100 talents on the list of top 1,000 talents. They were also one of the 13 Zongzis. Lu Ming's gaze swept across the Talisman Sect members and realized that many of them were missing. Out of the 13 candidates of the Talisman Sect, only 6 were present, 7 were missing. The total number of people from the Talisman Amulet Sect was only slightly more than 300. Are these the only people left in the Talisman Amulet Sect? Lu Ming asked. Almost there. Even if there are some who are still in the ruins, there are definitely not many. When Jisher sighed. The other talisman sect disciples also looked dejected. The talisman amulet sect had a total of about 1,000 people, but now there were only about 300 left. The losses were extremely heavy. One had to know that these were the elites of the talisman sect's younger generation. In every battle of Providence, a large number of geniuses would die in battle. However, every time there was a battle of Providence, the major factions would send all their geniuses in. This was because once someone obtained a great opportunity, all the sacrifices would be worth it. For example, this time Bai Qixue had obtained the inheritance of the emperor. Even if hundreds of people died in the battle, it was worth it. The inheritance of an emperor was extremely precious. Not only could it bring many different formations and inscriptions to the talisman sect, but also Bai Qixue's future would be limitless. Even if she could not reach the height of an emperor in the future, as long as she could become a supreme being, it would be worth it. We'd better leave this place first. I'm afraid that the other heaven's favorites from the Bloodblade continent will soon find out that their heaven's favorite has been killed. At that time they will come to kill us. We will be in real danger. Wanjin said. Not bad. When Jisher nodded. All of you enter the mountain and river diagram. Lu Ming waved his hand and the mountain and river diagram flew toward him. The Wheel of Blades, having lost its owner, stood still in the air and was put away by Lu Ming. Huan Zhen and the rest had long heard that Lu Ming had a treasure like the mountain and river diagram. They were overjoyed to hear that. As long as they entered the mountain and river diagram, Lu Ming would bring them to another place alone. The people from the Bloodblade continent would definitely not be able to find them. Immediately, the talisman amulet sect members were kept into the mountain and river diagram. Lu Ming put the mountain and river diagram away, turned into a rainbow light and left the place. In a valley millions of miles away, Lu Ming appeared and released the people from the talisman amulet sect. Some of the injured disciples began to heal their injuries, while those who were not injured began to carve formations around them. There were only 5 days left until the 1-year deadline. They had no intention of looking for any more opportunities. They just had to wait for the last 5 days to pass. Right now, the heaven's favorites from the Bloodblade continent and the Emperor's Sky Divine Palace should be near the royal city, waiting for an opportunity to get the last totem pillar, right? Lu Ming asked. That's right. There are still 5 days left. They will definitely make a move in these few days. Otherwise they won't have the chance anymore. If they don't get the last totem pillar, then all the luck they've obtained during this period of time will be wasted. The top heaven's favorites will definitely not be satisfied with this. Huan Jin nodded. In fact, the Bloodblade continent and the three-party alliance had already fought once before to attack the royal city. However, there were extremely powerful existences in the royal city, experts who were infinitely close to the spiritual god realm and could easily attack the spiritual god realm. Last time, there was an expert of that level who attacked and forcefully broke into the spiritual god realm, killing several powerful geniuses from both sides. However, in the end, the three-eyed god who forced his way into the spiritual god realm also exploded and died. They must have been suppressed to death by the laws of heaven and earth of this world. When Jisher explained. Lu Ming nodded. It was normal for the three-eyed god race to have such existences. The spiritual god realm experts that Lu Ming encountered on the Sky Poison Island were all elders of the three-eyed god race who were nearing the end of their lifespans. They had no choice but to give it their all and attempt to break through to the spiritual god realm. In the end they were suppressed. However, there were definitely some within the three-eyed god race that had yet to reach the end of their lifespans and could break through to the spiritual god stage at any time. Chapter 951. 951 Chapter 951 Attacking the Capital. Those existences were incomparably powerful, far more so than the ordinary three-eyed gods. This was because anyone who could break through to the spiritual god realm was a genius among geniuses. The foundation for a human warrior to break through to the spiritual god realm was to awaken a divine bloodline. Without awakening a divine bloodline, there was a 99% chance that one would not be able to break through to the spiritual god realm. Only those who had awakened a divine-level bloodline were qualified to break through to the spiritual god realm. However, that was all. Many who had awakened a first or even second-level divine-level bloodline would fail to break through to the spiritual god realm. Of course, the higher the level of the awakened divine bloodline, the higher the success rate would be. The spiritual god realm could have a lifespan of 5,000 years. In the eastern barren land there were hundreds of large regions. How many spiritual god realm experts had accumulated in the past 5,000 years? Very few. And how many among the younger generation had awakened divine bloodlines? There were 300 on the list of top 1,000 talents alone, and there were also new talents. If those with divine bloodlines could break through to the spiritual god realm, there would be hundreds of them in this generation. How was that possible? Even if this generation was at its golden age, it would be good enough if 100 or 200 people could break through to the spiritual god realm. Many god-tier geniuses might not even be able to defeat the spirit god. That was why those who could break through to the spiritual god realm were all geniuses among geniuses. They were all extremely powerful, and with such an existence in the royal three-eyed god race, it wouldn't be easy for the two forces to seize the last totem pillar. Lu Ming, are you going to fight for the last totem pole? Huan Zhen asked. Lu Ming's lips curled into a smile. Why not? If both sides fight, I might be able to benefit from it. With your combat strength you might have a chance. Unfortunately, I was injured in the previous battle and can't help you, Huan Zhen said. No need to help. I'm just going to take a look. It's better to hide alone. If there's an opportunity, I'll wait for it. If there's no opportunity, then forget it, Lu Ming said with a smile. Huan Zhen pondered for a moment. His hand glowed and an inscription talisman scroll appeared. He handed it to Lu Ming and said, Lu Ming, this is a peculiar inscription talisman that I obtained previously. As long as you activate it with your own mental energy fire, you can condense 8 people that look exactly like you. Moreover, they all have the same aura. It might be helpful for your trip. Lu Ming was overjoyed. He did not decline and kept it, saying, Many thanks, I will definitely repay this favor in the future. This inscription scroll was very precious. It could actually condense 8 people with the same aura as the user. It could definitely save a life at a critical moment. This was clearly a treasure that Huan Zhen had obtained from the Battle of Providence. Lu Ming was very grateful that Huan Zhen was willing to give such a treasure to him. You're welcome. You saved me before. Huan Zhen laughed. He was a handsome man that could make women jealous. Then I'll go to the capital. If there's anything, you can contact me at any time, Lu Ming said. Then he looked at Bai Qixue, who was not far away, and turned to leave. Lu Ming. Bai Qixue called him from behind. Miss Bai, don't worry, I'll be fine. Lu Ming smiled and did not say much. He headed for the capital. Why did he call me Miss Bai? Didn't you just call me Qixue? Bai Qixue looked at Lu Ming's back as he left, lost in thought. There are rumors that during the war in 9 Dragons, Lu Ming did it for a woman. Could that woman be Lu Ming's lover? Thinking of this, Bai Qixue let out a long sigh, and her eyes looked a bit sad. A beam of light streaked across the sky, traveling 100 miles in an instant. Not long after, Lu Ming returned to the territory where the three-eyed god race's imperial city was. He carved an array for himself to conceal his aura, and then continued to move forward. Soon, a magnificent city appeared in front of them. This was the royal city of the three-eyed god race. There were three-eyed god soldiers patrolling on the tall and majestic city walls, day and night. Last time, the prodigies from both sides charged into the capital, and this caused the three-eyed god race to be even more cautious. Oh, wait here. I guess the two sides will start fighting in a few days. Lu Ming hid in a secret place and observed the capital from afar. 1 day, 2 days. Time passed day by day, but neither side made a move. Obviously, both sides had the same idea, waiting for the other side to make the first move, and then reap the benefits. On the last day, both sides finally could not hold back and attacked at almost the same time. From the south and north of the capital, there were more than 100 rainbow lights each, rushing towards the capital at an extreme speed. Both sides had sent out more than 100 people. Each one of them was a heaven's favorite among heaven's favorites, and they were extremely powerful. Enemy attack. And NBSP, die. A furious roar immediately erupted from the three-eyed god race's capital city, and the entire city exploded with powerful energy. Kill? The battle cries shook the heavens. More than 100 people from both the north and south charged into the capital like a sharp knife. Every one of them was a heaven's favorite who could jump several levels and kill their opponents. They were extremely powerful, especially a top heaven's favorite like Luo Tian. He was so powerful that he could easily kill a 9th-level spirit embryo realm cultivator. A brilliant light flashed, and although the three-eyed god race had a lot of people, they were instantly killed. The two sides quickly rushed towards the center of the capital. Those few people in the lead are so strong. Lu Ming watched from afar and his eyes narrowed. On the north side was the allied army of the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace, the Heavenly Corpse Sect and the Sky Demon Valley. The few people in the lead were extremely powerful. Their attacks erupted and killed anyone who stood in their way. A golden-robed youth wearing a golden crown slashed out with his sword. Regardless of whether they were at the 9th level or the 8th level of the spirit embryo realm, they were all killed in one move. Lu Ming even discovered that a powerful existence with a perfected spirit embryo was killed by him with one slash. Strong, extremely powerful. This man's aura is similar to Di Feng's. He must be Di Xin, the top talent among the young generation of the Eastern Barren Territory and the top one on the list of top 1,000 talents. Lu Ming's eyes flickered with a strong fighting spirit. Emperor God was also the descendant of Martial Emperor Di, but he was terrifyingly talented. Some people said that his talent was not weaker than Martial Emperor Di's when he was young, and he had the potential to become an emperor in the future. Beside the emperor, the Heavenly Corpse Sect and the Heavenly Demon Valley also had their own powerful heaven's favorites. In the south, in the Bloody Blade continent, there were also proud sons of heaven on the same level as the Emperor God level. In just a few minutes, they had broken through many obstacles and were about to reach the center of the capital. You still dare to charge in? You're looking for death. Suddenly, a loud roar came from the center of Jianghu city. Then, a beam of light with lightning struck toward the Emperor God. The Emperor God struck out with his sword and destroyed the light beam, but he was also stopped. Then several beams of light burst out in succession, shooting toward the north and south. The Bloody Blade continent and the Eastern Barren Territory were both attacked. So there are still old guys like you. You guys block the other three-eyed gods and we'll take the totem pillar. The Emperor God's voice was heard. Then he, together with the most powerful paragons of the Heavenly Demon Tribe and the Heavenly Corpse Sect, charged forward as if they had met their match. Sword chi and saber light shot up into the sky in the capital. And NBSP, the Bloodblade continent was doing the same. The strongest few charged forward while the others blocked the other three-eyed gods. Chapter 952. 952 Chapter 952 Taking Action. It seems that there are still people who are about to break through to the spiritual god realm in Jianghu city. Otherwise, no one can stop the Emperor God and the others. Lu Ming's eyes flickered and he smiled. The other party was competing with the strong, which gave him a chance. Lu Ming turned into a shadow and rushed toward the capital. Firstly, he came from the north, along the route that the three parties from the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace had taken. And NBSP, there were almost no obstructions along the way, and the three-eyed god race had all been drawn to the center. On the way he saw many corpses of three-eyed gods. Swallow. Lu Ming controlled his 9-dragon bloodline and started devouring it crazily. Of course he couldn't be bothered to devour those of a lower level. He only devoured the corpses of three-eyed god race beings of the 7th level spirit embryo realm and above. One by one the corpses of the three-eyed god race turned into dried corpses. Along the way he had devoured over 37th level spirit embryo realm, a dozen 8th level spirit embryo realm, 5 to 6 9th level spirit embryo realm, and even a three-eyed god corpse with a perfected spirit embryo. His blood essence and energy were extremely rich. The two sides are still fighting anyway. Let's find a place to refine it. Lu Ming rushed into a small room and entered the mountain and river diagram. He focused all his energy on refining the energy that he had devoured. Roar. Not long after, the 9 dragons let out a long roar. On top of the 5 golden chakra there was one more chakra. Divine level rank 6 bloodline. The 9-dragon bloodline had finally advanced by 1 level, reaching divine level rank 6. With the advancement of the 9-dragon bloodline, the speed of refining energy had increased by several times. Boom, boom, boom. Within his body, his true essence rumbled and was incomparably majestic. His spirit embryo was constantly being condensed and slowly shrinking. It was as if a powerful existence was being nurtured within the spirit embryo. An hour later, all the energy in his body had been refined clean. Peak of the 7th level spirit embryo realm. Lu Ming's heart stirred. Previously, his cultivation had been at the early stage of the 7th level spirit embryo realm. Now that he had reached the peak of the 7th level spirit embryo realm, Lu Ming was slightly surprised that he had not broken through to the 8th level spirit embryo realm after devouring so many powerful three-eyed gods. On the other hand, his intent realm had some breakthroughs. Outside the mountain and river diagram, there was still a constant roar. It seemed that the battle was still going on. It's been more than an hour and they're still fighting. It seems that the Emperor God and the others have met a strong opponent. I'll go and take a look. Lu Ming carefully left the room and rushed to the center of the capital. His speed was extremely fast and he kept his aura hidden. He kept flashing in the dark and almost no one noticed him. In the center of the capital there was a huge square. In the middle of the square, there was a stone pillar with various carvings on it. It was a totem pillar. And around the square there was an intense battle. A vast aura filled the air. Two of the three-eyed gods were extremely burly. They were more than 10 meters tall, and the aura they emitted was almost at the spiritual god realm. The Emperor God and two other powerful young men teamed up to fight against a three-eyed god. A few powerful youths from the Bloodblade continent also joined forces to fight against a flashing-eyed god race. Even further out, countless three-eyed gods were attacking the other chosen. The totem pole was right in front of him, but he couldn't seize it. This is my chance. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. The bone armor on his body transformed into another form. He took a step forward and suddenly rushed forward. Kill? One of the three-eyed gods noticed him and swung his axe at Lu Ming. Lu Ming threw a punch and the three-eyed god was killed. When the people from the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace, Heavenly Corpse Sect, and Heavenly Demon Valley saw Lu Ming, they thought that he was a genius on their side and naturally did not stop him. Bang! Bang! Lu Ming killed a few three-eyed celestials in a row and used the 9 dragons' heaven-stomping steps. His body flashed rapidly like a ray of light. He passed through many battlefields and approached the battlefield where the Emperor God and the others were fighting. He did not stop and continued to rush towards the central totem pole. Ants, you're looking for death. The three-eyed god who was fighting with Di Shin and the others was extremely powerful. The third eye on his glabella shot out a beam of light that pierced through Lu Ming. Lu Ming was shocked and he dodged several times, retreating 100 meters to avoid the attack. What? The Emperor God and the others also looked at Lu Ming. They frowned. Lu Ming's appearance was very unfamiliar and his aura was completely concealed. Which force did he belong to? He actually wanted to take the totem pole for himself. You want to take the totem pillar? Wishful thinking. And NBSP, scram. The tall and sturdy three-eyed god roared, but as he did so, he spat out a mouthful of blood. There seemed to be an invisible energy pressing down on him. In this world, the three-eyed god race can't break through to the spirit god realm. He forcefully broke through to the spirit god realm and is being suppressed by the laws of the heaven and earth. He's on the verge of death. The Emperor God let out a long roar and fought with all his might. These two three-eyed gods had forcefully entered the spiritual god realm and were suppressed by the laws, so they couldn't use their strength at all. Otherwise, no matter how talented the Emperor God and the others were, they wouldn't be a match for a spiritual god expert. They wouldn't even be able to block it. The difference between a spirit embryo and a spirit god was too great. It was difficult to surpass because people in the spirit god realm were overwhelming prodigies to begin with. I can only use the inscription scroll. Lu Ming's eyes flickered and the inscription talisman that Huan Zhen had given him appeared in his hand. As soon as he opened it, his mental energy spread out. Buzz. The inscription scroll glowed and Lu Ming's body was suddenly covered in an array. Then his body trembled and split into Tulivir Lu Ming's. There were a total of 13 Lu Ming. Of course, once he used this inscription talisman scroll, he would return to his original appearance. However, the 13 Lu Mings had the exact same appearance and body shape. Even their auras were the same. This is a good opportunity. Charge. Lu Ming was overjoyed. With a single thought, the 13 figures split up and dashed towards the totem pole at top speed. The three-eyed god race was stunned, so was the god emperor. Lu Ming, it's him. The Emperor God shouted coldly. He had recognized Lu Ming. Damn it. The three-eyed god bellowed in rage. A beam of light shot out from his glabella, aiming at one of the Lu Mings. Lu Ming's figure flickered non-stop as he dodged the beams. The three-eyed god's eyes continued to shoot out beams of light, and finally, after much difficulty, they managed to hit him. That Lu Ming crumbled, but the other Tulliver continued to charge forward. Humph, don't even think about it. The Emperor God and the others also took action, not wanting Lu Ming to take the totem pole. On the other side, the Bloodblade Continent and the Three-Eyed God who was fighting against them also moved to stop Lu Ming. The people of the Bloodblade Continent did not want Lu Ming to obtain the totem pole. However, they did not know which one was Lu Ming's real body and could only attack randomly. The remaining Tulliver Lu Ming's figures flickered continuously, avoiding the attacks and approaching the totem pole. Bang! Bang! With so many experts blocking Lu Ming, it was naturally impossible for him to avoid all of them. He was hit continuously and his body collapsed one after another. However, in the end, there were still 2 bodies that managed to reach the totem pole. Ah, damn it, no! The young man from the Bloodblade Continent shouted madly. The eyes of the Divine Emperor and the others glowed. They were not too excited. No matter what, Lu Ming was from the East Baron. If he seized the totem pole, he could help the East Baron to open the ancient city of Providence. As for the fate value, he could just snatch it from the ancient city of Providence. When they thought of this, they didn't make a move. Chapter 953. 953 The appearance of the ancient city of Providence. Rise. The 2 figures of Lu Ming hugged the totem pole at the same time and roared. With a loud boom, the totem pole was pulled out by Lu Ming. The moment he did so, a beam of light descended from the sky and landed on Lu Ming. The attacks from all directions were blocked by the light beam. At this moment, the Three-Eyed God race, the Divine Emperor, and the others did not attack Lu Ming. No. The paragons of the Bloodblade Continent let out indignant roars and attacked Lu Ming frantically. Unfortunately, no matter how they attacked, they were blocked by the light. Bus. And NBSP whoosh. At this moment, pillars of light descended from the sky and enveloped the youths of the Bloodblade Continent. Then, as they roared unwillingly, the geniuses of the Bloodblade Continent all disappeared on the spot with a flash. It was obvious that they had failed and were teleported out. Boom. At this moment, the totem pole in Lu Ming's hands trembled violently. It flickered with light and then flew into the sky. Then, Lu Ming realized that another totem pole in his storage ring had flown out of the storage ring by itself and into the sky. Totem pillars also flew out of the Emperor God's and the others' storage rings. The most shocking one was the Emperor God. 2 of them flew out of his storage ring at the same time. A few million miles away from the capital, a fatty was carrying a huge axe. Beside him was a beautiful woman. The 2 of them were casually walking in the sky. They were Fatty Kong Jin and Ruan Tingting. Suddenly the fatty's face changed. A totem pillar flew out of his storage ring. The totem pillar glowed and pierced through the space, flying into the distance. The next moment, Fatty reacted and let out a shrill cry, "Ah, my totem pole!" The totem pillar that he had obtained with great difficulty had actually flown away by itself. He immediately flew in the direction of the totem pillar. Boom, boom, boom. The sky above the imperial city trembled as the totem pillars started to gather. Soon, all 10 of them had gathered together and formed a strange array in the sky. At this moment, the battle in the capital stopped. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the sky. Boom. The totem pillars gathered together, and a bright light shot up into the sky. The space was torn apart by the light and a huge hole appeared. From the inside, a huge ancient city could be seen. In the eastern wilderness, the higher-ups of the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace, the Heavenly Corpse Sect, the Sky Demon Valley, and the Talisman Amulet Sect had all gathered at their respective ancient teleportation portals, which were the entrances to the Battle of Providence. The Talisman Amulet Sect, by Shijin Du Songjue, and the other senior members as well as some powerful elders, were all gathered in the area near the ancient stone. The 1-year deadline is about to arrive. I wonder if the ancient city of Providence will be able to open this time. Du Songjue sighed. It wasn't easy to open the ancient city of Providence, and most of the battles for Providence in the past hadn't even been able to open it. The number of times it could be opened was in the minority. I hope it can be opened. However, once it's opened, my Talisman Amulet Sect's disciples will be in danger. Bai Shijin sighed. The other elders also sighed. They were conflicted. After the opening of the ancient city of Providence, it would be the final battle. This was an opportunity for the talisman sect disciples, but it was also very dangerous. Without strength they would only be killed by others. At the same time they thought of Lu Ming. They wanted Lu Ming to be the top of the list of top 1,000 talents, but they knew that it was too difficult. Most importantly, Lu Ming had too little time. Before the Battle of Providence, Lu Ming's combat strength could only compete with those at the bottom of the 100. However, the top 100 on the list of top 1,000 talents were all more powerful than the last. It would be too difficult for Lu Ming to catch up with them in a year. After all, he would improve and so would the other geniuses. They didn't have much hope in their hearts. Time slowly passed. Suddenly the stone began to shake and emit a bright light. It's activated. The teleportation formation has been activated, which means that the ancient city of Providence has been activated. Bai Shijin and the others were overjoyed. Let's go. We'll enter the ancient city of Providence. Du Songjue shouted. Everyone stepped forward and entered the teleportation array. At the same time, in the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace, the Heavenly Corpse Sect and the Sky Demon Valley, there was also an ancient stone that was glowing. The higher-ups of the three parties stepped into the teleportation array and disappeared. In the eastern barren land, above a barren mountain, a shocking roar suddenly came from the endless void. Wind and clouds gathered, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Suddenly the endless void cracked and a huge spatial crack appeared. Then an ancient city emerged from it. This ancient city was more than 10,000 miles in length and width. In the middle of the city there was a huge fighting stage. The fighting stage was made of a strange metal with strange patterns on it. Around the fighting ring, there were rows of seats in the shape of a ring. It was like a coliseum. Sitting on the seats, one could look down and see everything happening in the fighting ring. There was no grandstand on the north side of the battle stage. Instead, there was a long flight of stairs that extended from the bottom to the battle stage. Suddenly, 4 black vortexes appeared in the sky above the stands, from which many figures emerged. In one of the vortexes, Bai Shijin, Du Songjue, and the other patriarchs of the symbol puppet sect appeared. On the right side of the talisman amulet sect, silhouettes filled with corpse chi and ghostly chi appeared. They were the higher-ups of the heavenly corpse sect, all of whom were extremely powerful. In particular, there was a tall figure among them. He was shrouded in endless corpse chi, and his appearance could not be seen clearly. His aura was not strong, but it gave people a huge pressure. The Corpse Emperor of the Sky Corpse Sect. Upon seeing this figure, Bai Shijin and the others' pupils contracted and they became extremely solemn. The Sky Corpse Sect's Corpse Emperor was a sovereign path expert, on par with Martial Emperor De. They were renowned throughout the Eastern Barren Territory. This time, even the Corpse Emperor had appeared, which showed how important this Battle of Providence was. Fortunately, the ancient city of Kismet was similar to the entrance to the Battle of Kismet. There was a powerful suppression, and the older one was, the stronger the suppression. Even Imperial Dao experts would be greatly suppressed here, and they wouldn't be able to display much of their battle prowess. That was why they weren't too worried. If they were outside, the zombie emperor could kill them all by himself. On the right side of the Heavenly Corpse Sect, another group of people also appeared. They were from the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace. The clan heads of the 6 great ancient clans were all here. There were also a few other people who exuded a similarly imposing aura. Clearly, they were characters on the same level as the clan heads of the 6 great clans. The supremes of the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace were not limited to the clan heads of the 6 great ancient clans. However, the gazes of Bai Shijin and the others directly skipped over them and landed on a middle-aged man in a purple and gold robe. Martial Emperor De. Bai Shijin and the others were shocked. Martial Emperor De had come in person. Chapter 954. 954 Martial Emperor, Demon Emperor and Corpse Emperor. Martial Emperor De was famous in the East Barren. He founded the Detian Divine Palace and made it the biggest human force in the East Barren. He was so famous and powerful that some people called him the #1 emperor in the East Barren. Even the Corpse Emperor was weaker. Moreover, Bai Shijin and the others knew that it was De who had secretly killed Lien Tsang. They hated and feared Martial Emperor De. When Martial Emperor De appeared, he looked directly at the talisman sect like 2 extremely sharp divine swords. Although Martial Emperor De was completely suppressed here, it still gave people a lot of pressure. By Shijin, Du Songjue, Meng Chong, and the others all changed their expressions as if a huge rock was pressing on their hearts. Only one person looked calm as he stared at Martial Emperor De. Yin Kuang-tu. Yin Kuang-tu and the Talisman Amulet sect had also entered this place. Yin Kuang-tu's eyebrows flashed, and the Nine Suns Supreme Master walked out. After a year, the soul of the Nine Suns Supreme had become many times more solid than it was a year ago. It was almost solid and its soul power was strong and stable. He also looked at Martial Emperor De. A bright light burst out of Martial Emperor De's eyes, and a strong killing intent filled the air. Although he did not speak, he had made it clear. Do you think that hiding in the Talisman Amulet sect will be of any use? The patriarch of the Wang clan looked at Yin Kuang-tu and the others with cold eyes. Your Talisman Amulet sect will also be destroyed sooner or later. I wonder how many people from the Talisman Amulet sect will be able to make it to the ancient city of Providence in this battle of Providence. I hope they don't all die. The master of the Jianghu family said coldly. Don't worry, the disciples of the Talisman Amulet sect will naturally have their own opportunities. Bai Shijin said in a deep voice. It's useless to be stubborn. Soon you'll see the reality. The patriarch of the Wang clan said coldly. This time Bai Shijin and the others didn't reply. There was no point in saying more. I don't know what you're thinking. You have two such powerful disciples. You don't even want your grand disciple, which makes me very jealous. At this time, a voice came from another direction. It was a woman's voice, but it was full of charm. It made people's hearts beat faster and their hearts tremble. Everyone's gaze turned towards the source of the voice. Demonic chi filled the air. The demons of the Sky Demon Valley had arrived. One of the women was about 30 years old. She was wearing a thin veil that revealed her devilish figure. Her appearance was enough to turn all living beings upside down. Any man who saw her would feel their hearts skip a beat. Her every move, every frown, and every smile was filled with endless temptation. Demon Emperor. Central's heart trembled. The Demon Emperor of the Sky Demon Valley was said to be a nine-tailed fox, a pure-blooded nine-tailed fox. A pure-blood nine-tailed fox was a divine beast. Even though a nine-tailed fox was not particularly strong among divine beasts, it was still extremely terrifying. Today the three supreme existences of the East Continent, the Martial Emperor, the Demon Emperor, and the Corpse Emperor, had all arrived. This was a rare occasion that only happened once in 1,000 years. In the eastern wastelands, the number of emperors could be counted with a finger. Each one of them was a supreme existence. Without a doubt, DE's Martial Emperor, Demon Emperor, and Corpse Emperor were the strongest among the emperors. Although the demonic Sky Sovereign was also a sovereign, he was weaker than the three of them. Back then, the demonic Sky Sovereign had only stopped the avatar of Martial Emperor Dai. Now, it was obvious that the real body of Martial Emperor Dai had returned from the sea. In comparison, the Talisman Amulet sect was too weak. They're just a pair of unfilial disciples. The Demon Emperor must be laughing at us. Martial Emperor De said coldly. Is he really a traitorous disciple? Why didn't the rumors I heard say this? You have seized the bloodline of the 9 sons and the blood essence of the 9 dragons. What do you want? I'm very curious. Chapter 955. 955 Chapter 955 Dragon Fate. This was especially so for the supreme talents like the Divine Emperor. They had seen Lu Ming catch them off guard in the capital and seize the last totem pole. He's relying on treasures to catch me off guard. He'd better not touch me in the fight for fate later. Otherwise I'll definitely kill him. Luo Tian said coldly. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he glared at Lu Ming. That's right, I'll kill him too. Another person coldly spoke. The Emperor God didn't say anything, but his eyes were cold. The battle for Providence had not ended yet. There was still a second stage, the battle for Providence. He might not be able to keep the luck he had seized before. Lu Ming smiled faintly and could not be bothered with the gazes of these people. Let's go up the stairs and head to the fighting ring. Someone said and stepped forward. In front of this platform, there was a huge flight of stairs that led upwards. Some people had already started to step forward. Then all the forces stepped forward. In fact, even if the few major forces were added together, they did not have many people. The Talisman Amulet sect had over 1,000 people who had participated in the Battle of Providence, but now there were less than 400 left. Back then, the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace had close to 10,000 people who had participated in the Battle of Providence, including the Death Warriors. Now they only had 2,000 plus people. It could be said that they had suffered heavy casualties. The Heavenly Corpse sect only had less than 2,000. The Sky Demon Valley was slightly better off with nearly 2,000 people. Of course, the rest of them had more or less obtained some opportunities. Some of them had even obtained great opportunities. As long as they survived, their future prospects were limitless. Everyone went up the stairs, but Lu Ming immediately saw a strange phenomenon. For example, the remaining suicide soldiers of the Heavenly Corpse sect and the Emperor Sky Divine Palace could climb the stairs very quickly. Their bodies were light and agile. As for those famous geniuses, their speed was much slower. It was as if they were carrying a huge mountain on their backs. Each step was extremely difficult. It's said that the higher one's luck value is, the greater the pressure one will face when walking up the stairs. It will be more difficult to walk. On the side, Huanjin said. Lu Ming had a sudden realization. No wonder. Those men of sacrifice were in charge of exploring some dangerous places. Any treasures would naturally belong to the elites. These men of sacrifice did not have much fate value, so they were naturally light and fast. On the stairs and around the fighting ring, the higher-ups of the four forces were staring at the stairs without blinking. Someone's coming up. Someone suddenly shouted, and many people's eyes lit up. A young man in a blood-red robe with dull eyes walked up the stairs and stepped into the battle stage. He was a death warrior of the Heavenly Corpse sect. When he stepped onto the fighting ring, a Book of Destiny appeared in front of him. The Book of Destiny turned into a small worm and appeared above the young man's head. However, the next moment, the small worm crumbled, and a beam of light suddenly appeared above the young man's head. With a flash, the young man was teleported away and appeared on a seat in the Heavenly Corpse sect's area. No one was surprised. In the first phase of the Battle of Providence, the map would change every time. However, in the second phase, the map of the ancient city of Providence would change every time. This Heavenly Corpse sect's Deathsworn obviously did not have enough luck value and had been eliminated in advance. To qualify for the next round of the Battle for Providence, one had to obtain a certain amount of Providence value. If one's Providence value did not meet the standard, all the previously obtained Providence value would disappear and be wasted. One would be sent to the stands and eliminated in advance. This was the same for every Battle of Providence. Following that, more and more people came up. However, the ones who had come up were all people with very low fate. The Book of Destiny turned into a bug and then collapsed, being teleported away. The number of people in the stands slowly increased. In the beginning, most of them were death warriors, followed by some young geniuses and Heaven's Pride experts. Someone's Book of Destiny condensed a small snake that was many times larger than the small worm from before. However, it still collapsed and was eliminated early. Thousands of people were eliminated. Suddenly there was a flash of light. The Book of Destiny of a young man in green collapsed and turned into a giant python. The giant python roared in a majestic manner. It was much stronger than the small insects and snakes from before. Moreover, the giant python didn't collapse. It was still hovering above his head. He wasn't teleported to the stands but remained on the fighting ring. Serpents of Fate. Only those with more than 3,000 points of fate can turn into serpents. Only then can they retain their fate and enter the battle for fate. An old man in the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace spoke. The young man was ecstatic. If Lu Ming was here, he would definitely recognize this young man. He was Qin Qingshan, who was ranked 999th on the list of top 1,000 talents. He barely qualified for the next round. The next young men were all able to transform their fate into pythons. The giant pythons spiraled above the heads of these young men, which was quite spectacular. In the end, more than 1,000 people were able to transform into pythons. Roar. Suddenly, a roar reverberated through the entire area, attracting everyone's attention. A 3-meter-long flood dragon appeared above the head of a young man. It was more majestic and powerful than the pythons. Fate turning into a flood dragon. Only when one's luck value reached 10,000 or more could one's luck transform into a flood dragon. Luck value 3,000 to 10,000. Luck transformed into a python. From 10,000 to 100,000 points of luck, one's luck would transform into a flood dragon. When one's luck value reached more than 100,000, one could transform their luck into a dragon. The length of the dragon would be different depending on the amount of luck. Starting from this young man, the stage of the fate turning into a flood dragon had begun. Humph, Talisman Amulet Sect, I didn't expect you to still have many disciples alive. The Wang clan's patriarch looked towards the Talisman Sect and mocked. Now there were already quite a number of Talisman Sect disciples who had appeared. Bai Shijin and the others were slightly more at ease. I've said it before. The disciples of my Talisman Amulet Sect have their own opportunities. How can they die so easily? It seems that quite a few of you are missing. Bai Shijin sneered. Hehe, the main thing is to see how many of your so-called peerless geniuses from the Talisman Amulet Sect can stay. The patriarch of the Wang clan sneered. Those who were able to turn into a dragon were definitely the cream of the crop. That was because the young man who had turned into a dragon was a god-tier genius. The Heavens favorites who came up later were the core of the sections. Heavens, why is it so heavy? At this moment, Lu Ming had also stepped onto the stairs. However, he felt as if hundreds of mountains were pressing down on him. It was difficult for him to move. He had to use a lot of strength to take one step. Lu Ming gritted his teeth and climbed up with great difficulty. On the stairs, Lu Ming saw Di Shin, Shui Jiani of the Heavenly Corpse sect, and a burly young man of the Sky Demon Valley. They were also walking very slowly, their bodies trembling slightly. The fatty was also very slow, but relatively speaking he was much faster than Lu Ming. Haha, Lu Ming, why are you so slow? I've finally surpassed you. The fat man grinned happily. His fat trembled as he walked forward step by step, in front of Di Shen and the others. There was also one person who was slow, and that was Bai Qixue. However, she was a bit faster than the fatty. Huan Zhen was also behind Bai Qixue. Ruan Tingting, on the other hand, was a little faster and was about to reach the top of the stairs. Chapter 956. 956 True Dragon's Length. Slowly, the number of people on the stairs decreased. The higher-ups of the major forces around the fighting ring were still staring at the stairs. At this time, there were nearly 300 people who could transform their luck into a dragon on the fighting ring. The 300 flood dragons were of different lengths. The shortest one was 10 feet long, and the longest one was 99 feet. At this moment, the faces of Bai Shijin, Du Songjue, and the others were getting uglier and uglier. This was because only a few of the 13 Zongzis had come up. The Wang clan master's expression was similarly ugly. He didn't see Wang Chong and Wang Chen. These people should have appeared in the group of people who had the fate of transforming into a flood dragon. It's impossible for so many people to have their luck transform into a dragon, right? In history there were very few people who could transform their fate into a dragon, and they were all monsters among monsters. Qi Shui Lu Ming. Bai Shijin's heart was in his mouth. Lu Ming and Bai Qixue did not show up. Lu Ming might be able to break through to the fate dragon transformation, but Qi Shui. Bai Shijin felt sad. He understood that with Bai Qixue's cultivation, it was almost impossible for her to get such a high luck value, unless she had a heaven-defying opportunity. Roar. Brr. Suddenly, a dragon's roar shook the surroundings and interrupted Bai Shijin's thoughts. Bai Shijin hurriedly looked over and was immediately overjoyed. Bai Qixue, he saw Bai Qixue. At this moment, a real dragon with 5 claws flew out from the top of Bai Qixue's head. It was about 30 meters long and was as big as all the other pythons and flood dragons. The fate had transformed into a dragon. Bai Qixue's luck had turned into a dragon, which was completely out of Bai Shijin's expectation. The other patriarchs of the Talisman sect were also overjoyed. Obviously, Bai Qixue had a great opportunity. Humph, without cultivation, what's the point of obtaining so much fate value? You'll still have to spit it out later. Seeing that the 2 top-notch heavens favorites of the Wang family didn't come out, the master of the Wang family was in a bad mood and sneered. The faces of Bai Shijin and the others changed. Well, there would be a fight later. Bai Qixue had a lot of luck but not a strong cultivation, so he would definitely be targeted by many people. Sure enough, all the heavens favorites around the fighting stage were staring at Bai Qixue with hostility. When they found out that Bai Qixue's cultivation was indeed not high, their eyes became even more heated. Roar. At this moment, another paragon stepped forward. A true dragon also appeared above his head, and his luck transformed into a dragon. It's Nangong Bo. Someone shouted. Haha Bo, is not bad. The head of the Nangong family revealed a smile. Nangong Bo was ranked 32nd on the list of top 1,000 talents, so the crowd was not too surprised. Nangong Bo's true dragon was about the same length as Bai Qishue's, about 100 feet long. Following that, those who ascended the stairs were all existences whose luck had transformed into a dragon. Moreover, most of them were ranked above Nangong Bo on the list of top 1,000 talents. Of course, there were also special ones. There were also those who were ranked behind Nangong Bo, but there were very few. There were even some who didn't make it onto the list of top 1,000 talents and were new talents. For example, the Corpse King of the Heavenly Corpse sect. There were also the elites of the Sky Demon Valley. Those who could transform their fate into a dragon were all monstrous geniuses among monstrous geniuses and were extremely powerful. People like Bai Qishue, who had accumulated luck points through great opportunities, were rare. Ru Kong. Not long after, Bai Shijing, Du Songjue and the rest were overjoyed to see another paragon of the Talisman Amulet sect turn into a dragon. Ru Kong was second only to Huan Zhen in the Talisman Amulet sect. The true dragon above his head was 15 feet long. 10,000 was 10 feet, which meant Ru Kong had obtained about 150,000 luck points. As for Wen Zhongli and the others, they had only been lucky enough to transform into a flood dragon. It seems like Guan Tao, Lu Song and the others have all fallen. By Shijing, Du Songjue and the others sighed. Ru Kong had appeared. Now there was also Huan Zhen and of course Lu Ming. However, could Lu Ming's destiny really transform into a dragon? He still hadn't appeared. Everyone was worried. On the other hand, Yen Kuangtu and Nine Sun Supreme were very calm. As for the three sovereigns, they didn't say a word and just watched quietly. Especially the Demon Emperor, who was covered in a layer of colorful light. Otherwise, with her seductiveness that could turn all living beings upside down, many young people would probably be possessed by the devil with just a glance. Bang. Another young man stepped onto the fighting ring with heavy steps. Demonic Lord Luo Tian. Someone exclaimed. Finally, the top 10 on the list of top 1,000 talents had appeared. The moment Luo Tian appeared, the Book of Destiny transformed into a true dragon that was 160 feet long. Following that, a few more people entered the arena. They were all in the top 10 of the list of top 1,000 talents. One of them was even a newly risen heaven's favorite. It was shocking. Each of them had fate dragons that were above Luo Tian, and one of them even reached 200 feet long. Bang. An extremely fat figure stepped into the fighting ring. It's him? Many people were shocked. Most of the people in the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace knew this fatty. He was the disciple of the demonic Sky Sovereign and was on very good terms with Lu Ming. Roar. A 250-foot-long true dragon appeared above Fatty's head, suppressing the true dragons of Luo Tian and the others. This made many people extremely surprised. This fatty had actually accumulated so much fate value. However, some people felt better after thinking that the fatty was the disciple of an emperor. How many people in the East Continent could be accepted as a disciple by an emperor? It was normal for him to be a little special. After the fatty, the people who came up were all above 250 feet. Bang. A young man with purple flames all over his body stepped onto the fighting ring. Wang Fenshin. The patriarch of the Wang clan's eyes lit up when he saw the young man. Everyone's eyes were focused on the young man. Wang Fenshin from the Wang family was ranked 5th on the list of top 1,000 talents and the only one from the Wang family who was in the top 10. It was extremely powerful. The true dragon above Wang Fenshin's head was a full 300 feet long. A refined young man immediately followed Wang Fenshin onto the fighting ring. Above his head was a true dragon that was 310 feet long. He was 3 meters longer than Wang Fenshin. Dongfang Yu. A name appeared in everyone's mind. He was the peerless heaven's favorite of the ancient Dongfang family, ranked 3rd on the list of top 1,000 talents. Then a beautiful woman appeared. She was a demon race prodigy and her dragon of fate was even longer than Dongfang Yu's. Bang. Bang. More and more people entered, and some recognized them as the chosen of the Heavenly Corpse sect. Buzz. A blood-red sword chi was released as a young man in a blood-red robe stepped into the fighting ring. The fate dragon on his body had reached a shocking 400 feet. Blood Sword 1, the number 1 disciple of the younger generation in the Heavenly Corpse sect, and the number 2 on the list of top 1,000 talents. Even Shui Jianyi has appeared. I think only the Emperor God and AO2 of the Heavenly Demon Valley are left. That's right. AO2 from the Heavenly Demon Valley is a rare heaven's favorite among the Flood Dragons. He can compete with the Emperor Gods. I wonder who will get more luck this time. I think it's an Emperor God. Although AO2 is strong, he's still a little weaker than an Emperor God. Look, someone's coming up. The surrounding people discussed as they stared at the stairs. Chapter 957. 957 800 feet Fate Energy True Dragon. A muscular young man over 2 meters tall stepped into the fighting ring. The battle stage rumbled. A true dragon formed above his head and roared. 460 feet. This person was none other than AO2 from the Sky Demon Valley. His Fate Dragon was 460 feet long, which was 60 feet longer than Blood Sword One. It was extremely shocking. However, since he had come earlier, everyone already knew that the Emperor God might have obtained more fate value. After AO2 came up, he turned around and looked at the stairs. A divine light flickered in his eyes. Bang! Bang! There was a rumbling sound coming from the stairs. Soon, a handsome face was revealed. It was the Emperor God. The Emperor God's slow steps seemed to be extremely heavy. Bang! Finally, he took a step forward, and a true dragon formed above his head. 560 feet long. God, no wonder the Emperor God is ranked first on the list of top 1,000 talents. He's a 250-meter-long dragon of fate. He's ranked first. That's right. It's 150 meters long at the start. There's a chance it'll be 1,000 meters long when the battle for karmic luck begins. Cries of alarm came from the surroundings. Haha, congratulations, Your Majesty. The Emperor God really has the demeanor of His Majesty when he was young. Perhaps another martial royal realm expert will be born in the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace during the holidays. Congratulations. The master of the Wang family congratulated Martial Emperor De. That's right. Brother Wang is right. Congratulations, Your Majesty. The master of the Jiang family and the others also congratulated him. Lu Ming, Bai Shijin, Du Songjue, and the others exclaimed in a low voice. Their eyes were filled with grief. Even the Emperor God had appeared. There should be no one else behind him. Could it be that Lu Ming had already died? At this moment, even Yen Kuangtu and the Nine Sons Supreme Master were swayed, and their eyes dimmed. Lu Ming was still too weak compared to the top 10 on the list of top 1,000 talents. Could it be that this was the end? However, they did not notice that the Divine Emperor AO2 and Shui Jianyi were still looking in the direction of the stairs. The sovereigns also stared at the stairs without blinking, as if they could sense something. At this time, the others also noticed something strange and looked at the stairs. Could there be someone else? How was that possible? The Divine Emperor AO2 and Shui Jianyi had all appeared. Could it be that there were still people who had not come up? Impossible. Who could obtain more fate value than the Emperor God? Unless someone had deliberately stayed at the top of the stairs and waited until the end to attract attention. In history there had been people like that. However, everyone couldn't help but be curious as they stared at it. Bang. A slight vibration could be heard. There was really someone there. The eyes of Bai Shijin, Yen Kuangtu, and the others lit up. If there were still people, it meant that there was still hope. Bang. Bang. The sound of vibration kept coming. It was very soft at first, but slowly, it became louder and clearer. In the end, it was as if there was an earthquake and there was a violent roar. Each explosion was like a mountain crashing into the ground. Finally, a handsome face appeared in everyone's sight. It's Lu Ming. The eyes of Bai Shijin, Yen Kuangtu, and the others suddenly lit up, emitting a bright light. Lu Ming, it's him. It's him. He's the last one. How is this possible? I guess he's just pretending to be the last one. He didn't get much fate value, so it's impossible for him to get more than the Emperor God. That's for sure. It's already not bad that he can transform his fate into a dragon. A wave of discussion spread out in the surroundings. At this moment, Lu Ming's body was trembling and he was panting heavily. Nest, why is it so heavy? This is too heavy. Lu Ming kept cursing in his heart. He felt that he was carrying hundreds of mountains on his back while climbing the stairs. He was exhausted. He was envious of others who were as light as swallows. Bang. Finally, he took a step into the fighting ring and the entire fighting ring rumbled violently. When Lu Ming stepped into the fighting ring, all the pressure on him disappeared without a trace. At the same time, the Book of Destiny appeared and crumbled. A dragon of destiny appeared above Lu Ming's head. Roar! A dragon's roar rumbled as a mighty true dragon spiraled up in the air. More importantly, this true dragon was 800 feet long. Yes, 800 feet. The scene was silent. Everyone was stunned as they looked at the young man on the fighting ring and the true dragon that was 800 feet long. 800 feet, how was this possible? How could Lu Ming have such terrifying luck? Even Yan Kuangtu, 9 Sons Supreme by Shijin, and the supreme martial artists of the other major forces were stunned. 800 feet? How is that possible? Lu Ming, this little bastard, how could he have such a high amount of luck? How is this possible? The patriarch of the Wang clan was the first to cry out in disbelief. He was a supreme martial artist of his generation. He had always been calm and composed. No matter what major event he faced, his expression would not change. However, this matter was simply too shocking. He couldn't help but exclaim in shock. Could it be that he's already become so powerful in the battle of karmic luck? The amount of fate energy I obtained is 800 feet. The master of the Jiang family was also shocked. Haha, Lu Ming, good job. I knew that this kid could do it. Yan Kuangtu laughed after being stunned for a while. The eyes of the 9 Sons Paragon also lit up with joy. As for Bai Shijin, Du Songjue and the other higher-ups of the Talisman Amulet sect, they were even more surprised. This was beyond their expectations. Although they had offered Lu Ming the first place in the Battle of Providence, they knew very well that the offer was too high. They had deliberately raised the offer to put pressure on Lu Ming. In their hearts, it was fine as long as Lu Ming could get into the top 10. He did not expect that Lu Ming would really come in first. Even though there was still a battle for Providence later. At this moment, Lu Ming had become the focus of the audience. Everyone's eyes were on him. Roar! Above his head, the 800-foot true dragon of fate roared and looked down at the other dragons of fate, flood dragons of fate and giant pythons. Even the Emperor God's true dragon of fortune was much shorter than Lu Ming's. We only managed to attract the enemy's experts in the end, and then attack them with a treasure. That's all. All this luck will eventually belong to me. I'll make you spit it all out. The Emperor God said coldly. That's right. You're a guy who hides in the dark and takes advantage of others. You only rely on treasures to catch them off guard. If you rely on your real abilities, can you obtain so many luck points? Demonic Lord Luo Tian also sneered and spoke with disdain. They all thought that Lu Ming had so many luck points because he had obtained the totem pole in the end. The last totem pillar was the last one and the most crucial one. They believed that the last totem pillar would definitely be able to obtain a huge amount of fate value. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.